Can we please remain standing for a moment of reflection for the suffering of the people of Ukraine, their lives shattered by this needless war. Let's take a moment to think about all people across our world living with war. Thank you. Please be seated. Item 1, announcements by the Mayor and the Chief Executive. Can I advise Council that agenda item 22, the motion on Ukraine, will be considered after item 5. We're going to start with tributes to former Councillor Roger Batty, who represented Dalton Ward 2003-2011. Councillor Munro.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I got to know Roger over the years when he was a councillor. He was deeply committed to his role and he always had a strong sense of justice, fairness and freedom. It could be said that politics coursed through Roger's blood. He was very grounded and he instinctively knew what to do to resolve a situation and help residents. More recently, I was able to work with him at Kirkburton Parish Council where he was elected as a parish councillor, but unfortunately his health started to fail. I hope those of you who knew him will join me in thanks for his contribution to the work of this council and the help he gave to his community. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Councillor Munro. Any further tributes? Yes, Councillor Marchington.
Yeah, I'd just like to pay tribute to Roger as well. He was a great colleague on the council, but also he was a long-time board member of Kirklees Neighbourhood Housing. And again, just to build on Councillor Munro's comments, that Roger's care and concern for tenants and residents and their involvement in the decisions that made their lives shone through his life, and that was born out of lived experience. I'd also like to pay tribute to him as somebody who was originally brought up in Goka. And that life experience in that place was brought forward and shared with the rest of us on Kirklees. And we do need councillors who've got a really good understanding of how policy can translate to make a difference in people's lives, but also bring their lived experience, not just for their own benefit, but the benefit of all the residents who they represent and across the borough. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Marchington. No more. Move on to the next part of this then. I have great pleasure in presenting Councillor Hussein with his year of office book. If you'd like to come up, please. Then we come on to note of thanks to retiring members. Myself, the Deputy Mayor, Councillors Hill, Mumtaz Hussein, Councillor Mcbride and Councillor Uppal. Councillor Pandor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to say a few vote of thanks to the councillors that are retiring. Firstly, starting with Councillor Peter Mcbride. Peter has been on the council for many, many years. When people get to know Peter, you realise actually he's a very sensitive, very kind-hearted person. I've known him, Peter, for many years, not just as a councillor, but when I used to be in the Labour group. And I got to know Peter a lot better when he became my deputy. And one of the things I can say was his advice was remarkable, always good, always full of wisdom, but at the same time, politically very astute in terms of what we need to do. But one of the things I can say about Peter, he has always put this council first. Even in our own group, he would say to me and other members that what is the best for the council and the borough of Kirklees and the residents. And in some ways, he's not retiring. I think he's just stepping down from the council because I'm sure Peter will still be around. And I'm sure that I will continue to talk to Peter, ring Peter up, because his experience, his knowledge, especially around the regeneration and local government, he's wrote a few books. Maybe he might have time to write another book. But I think, the years of service he's put in to Kirklees Council is remarkable, and I wish you all the best, Peter. Just a few words regarding Councillor Mumtaz Hussein. Mumtaz has been on the council for a long time, just about the same time as I have. And again, Mumtaz is one of them people that is very diligent in his ward. He knows exactly what is happening. He's got his finger on the pulse, and he's been chair of a number of committees. And it was really good to see that he actually held the office of mayor, and that's when he actually came into his own. And the office of mayor is one of them positions where your outlook and your overview and your understanding of not just your own ward, but the wider areas of Kirklees and beyond is amplified, and that is something that I saw in Mumtaz as he grew into the role. So Mumtaz is stepping down, but I'm sure that he's not going to disappear completely. I actually was very sad when he actually told me that he's going to step down. I went to see him at least twice. The first time I went to see him, I managed to convince him to carry on. But then a couple of months afterwards, I found out that he was definitely going to step down. So I went to see him again. And because of various reasons, I can completely understand his reason for standing down, and family just come first. But I wish everything goes well for Mumtaz. Councillor Erin Hill. Erin was one of the youngest councillors elected on this council. But I think there's other councillors now, Erin, that are better, and Erin became a mum twice as a councillor. I actually became a father to my third child while I was a councillor. And it's really good because, when the kids grow up, they can say, oh, but my mum was a councillor, and I was born while she was a councillor. But I know Erin has got a great future. She's well respected across all parties, and having a young family puts its own pressures on. So once again, Erin, thank you for all the hard work, especially when you were the lead member for Children's Services at a time when there were some big challenges. And Erin took the helm on, took the role on, hit the deck running until Councillor Viv Kendrick took over. But all the building blocks were put in, and people forget that putting the building blocks in, getting that cross-party support is the hardest bit, and to develop a strategy and a plan. And I thank you for all the hard work you put in, and I wish you all the best for the future. Councillor Akhtar, I've known Councillor Akhtar a long time before he became a councillor. And many of you might know this, but he was one of the community stalwarts in Batley. He had a lot more hair than he has now. He's still got more hair than me. So I'm trying to think of what he puts on. He's probably had a better life than I have. But one of the things that Akhtar was a pioneer of is with his own community in Batley, on the City Challenge. He managed to persuade the then deputy leader of the council Councillor Lawrence Conlon to buy or to release some land in Staincliffe, where they developed the Pakistani Kashmiri Welfare Association. And that centre was the hard work of Councillor Akhtar, and that centre is still moving on. He also was a writer for a national newspaper, Urdu newspaper, and he also did a lot of translation. And again, many people don't know this, but he has always had his heart in the community. And he actually comes from a family of linguistics. Again, he's one of these people that just stays very, very quiet in the background, but he's very diligent and he manages to get the work done. That's why he's been around for this time. So, and again, it's sad that he's deputy mayor at the moment, but because of his own health reasons, it was a big decision he took to step down as deputy mayor, especially if he was still carrying on, he'd have been the mayor. But I think that was the right decision. His family's fully behind him. And when he told me he was making that decision, he felt a bit embarrassed and he felt a bit sad. And I said, look, your health comes first. Because many years ago, when I was a wee lad, he had an accident. And a few years ago, very recently, he had an accident that actually had an impact on his hip, where he had an operation 40, 50 years ago. So that actually has had a toll on his health. So he's stepping down. For whatever you do at, I'm sure you're going to still be around, but I hope you and your family well. And finally, Mr. Mayor, how can I forget you? I was shocked to actually learn that you were stepping down because, when you think that somebody's not going to go and then you hear they're going to go, it actually hits you. And it doesn't matter which party they come from. You all have individual characteristics. I'm sure Nigel's will not be forgotten. But whatever you do, Mr. Mayor, Nigel, wish you the best. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Pandor. Councillor Mather.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, public life is about sacrifice and the strains it puts on individuals and their families. And this is usually very apparent in the lives of women, because we've got 2 women councillors, young women councillors, who are stepping down. And it is sad, because I wanted to be known as somebody who actually brought inclusivity into the Labour group. And it's always very sad that you have to make these choices. So, Erin, I'm talking about you and the bravery to have children whilst in office. And I know it's really, really difficult. So, here for you whenever needed. Harpreet, I feel very, very precious about, because I've known her for a long time. Again, she needs to do other things, and she made the decision to step down, and we couldn't persuade her. I want to say thank you for the long service of all the other colleagues that are stepping down. So, Mumtaz, I was beyond proud of you as our mayor for 2 years during the pandemic, and you did us proud. Mahmood, you have always been very courteous, very measured, and I have enjoyed your company. And lastly, what can I say about Peter? So, let me see. Reflections, motivations, and lived experience can never be taken for granted. That's where you are. So, I would say you've been okay as a colleague, mostly. We've had our arguments, we've agreed to disagree. Personally, I really do think that you've learnt a great deal from me, which I'm sure I'm looking forward to reading in your memoirs, especially the skills I bring to council in getting things done, good things happening in all our communities. What can I say, Peter? I'm going to miss you, but I know where you live, so I'll be seeing you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mather. Councillor David Hall.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'll start my remarks with thanks to you. I know that there'll be quite a lot said at the annual meeting when it comes to your last meeting, but I know that your political experience dates back beyond this council. In fact, started with the parish councillor, and of course Nigel has also been Group Whip and Chair of Scrutiny, and of course Mayor for this last year. So spanning over 20 years, not just 20 years, but beyond that. So thank you very much, Nigel, for everything you've done, both for the Conservative group and for this council and for your residents. Because one thing we know is that when your residents are happy with something, you're happy with something. When your residents are not happy with something, you're not happy with it. And you've served them with great distinction. So I wish you very well for whatever lies ahead. Next to Councillor Mcbride, good wishes, Peter, on your retirement. I don't know if anybody's said yet quite how long you've been in local politics, but anybody that's looked at the honours boards out there know that there's a certain Peter Mcbride on from the old Huddersfield Council, so it's well over 40 years, I would imagine. 50 years? Yeah, 50 years. That's a great sacrifice, isn't it? 50 years to have served your residents all that time. So thank you for everything that you've done. And to the other councillors, to Councillors Hill and Uppal, Hussein, Akhtar, thank you all very much. All these councillors have served with great distinction and leave the council with the respect of the members. Thank you for the efforts and sacrifices that you have made and for your friendship and for everything that you've done on behalf of your residents. We do appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hall. Councillor Kushik.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's Kaushik. When one person is leaving, it's hard to say bye. But here, I think so many good friends are leaving. But we're still around, we're still seeing each other, we're not saying goodbye. Anyway, I'm talking about Erin. Was the youngest person to be elected as a councillor in Kirklees, working alongside her ward colleagues, the Labour stalwart Molly Walton, who aged 80, also happened to be the oldest member at that time. Mentored and promoted by Molly and by long-time Crosslandmore and Netherton senior branch member, sporter and activist Alan Shepherd. Both senior party members providing guidance, advice, and support to the young Erin to stand for and win office at the age of 22. Erin represented her ward and the party with forceful enthusiasm at both cabinet and branch level. She has always been victorious in championship policies designed to support and improve the lives of residents in her ward, where she was born and raised and represented. Her depth of knowledge and extensive experience in dealing with complex issues and knowing her ward inside out were clearly visible in how she represented her ward resident and her party. Her contributions will be sorely missed. Erin has been and still is passionate about improving the lives of everyone living in the ward throughout Kirklees, having represented them over the years, and will no doubt continue to serve the public in the future indoors. I wish her well and good luck for the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kaushik. Councillor Homewood.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and congratulations to you and everybody who is retiring, and thank you for your service. I just wanted to put on record my thanks to Councillor Harpreet Uppal. Unfortunately, she can't be here today. But I just want to thank her for the service that she's given over the last 4 years in Ashbrow, and working with her has been really enjoyable, and I think she's made a real difference. And I just wanted to point out a couple of the things that she's worked on successfully. And the first one to me is just her kind of community focus. She's so good at going out into the community, speaking to people, bringing people together. And that's, I think, something that we're all striving to do. And I think she'll be greatly missed there. She's really given a proper impetus in the ward to the three of us working together on that. And the second thing that I just wanted to say that stands out for me about Harpreet is just her integrity. You know, she always does things in the right way, in the right manner. She always behaves professionally. I thought in the last couple of years when she's been doing the neighbourhoods, Environment Neighbourhood Scrutiny Committee, how much time and effort she's put into that. She hasn't just taken it as, I've got a role to do. She's actually put a massive amount of time and effort into it, and I think that just shows the type of person that she is. And I think that's part of the reason why she's chosen to leave now, because she's decided that if she's going to do something, she wants to do it 100%, and maybe she wants to focus on some other things at the moment. And I think that's you know, a really good thing for us all to reflect on about, you know, what we're here for and why we're doing it. And obviously she's very young, so hopefully she may well be back in the future. We'll see. But yeah, I want to thank you very much for your service.
Thank you, Councillor Homewood. Councillor Richard Smith.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to say thank you to all the councillors that are retiring this time. I think it's right that we recognise people from every party. I think that I believe that everyone in this room joins local politics for the right reason. I believe that everyone has their own opinion about how things should be done, but I believe that I believe all the people who are standing down this time are people with integrity and people who have actually chosen to serve their communities for the right reasons. So I'd like to just extend that thought to all of them. I think a couple of people I would mention specifically. Harpreet's been mentioned before, and I think that I got to know her a little bit better over the last 12 months because she serves on a wicker committee that I also serve on. We've had a lot of good conversations. We don't agree about political things particularly, but she's always very friendly, she's intelligent. You know, we've had a lot of chats in the middle of Leeds when we've had disagreements politically, but it's always been friendly disagreements. It's never been antagonistic or rude, and you know, she's a very, very intelligent person, is Harpreet, and she's got a lot of opinions about things, and you've got to respect what she says, even if you don't agree with them. I think Councillor Homewood summed it up pretty well, actually. The word integrity. I think it's a shame she's not here tonight because I would have liked to say goodbye and farewell. And I think that the people of Ashborough probably have lost a valuable councillor, actually. She's never been my councillor, but I'm sure that she's done an awful lot for the people that she represented. So I wish her the very best for the future. I'd also like to say, Nigel, to yourself, you did say to me it's a bit like an obituary, and if you haven't got anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. So I am going to say something nice, actually. You've been my councillor over the years, and you know, we've not always agreed about everything, because politicians don't. But, you know, you've always had the best interests of everybody at heart, and I think that Home Firth, particularly, is losing someone who's fought the corner for many, many years. You put an awful lot of effort into what you do, and I think, you know, we all should acknowledge that. So thank you for your service, Nigel. Just one thing, I'm still waiting for the lamb I was promised for traipsing round Home Firth 4 years ago, but wish you well for the future.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Councillor Lees Hamilton.
I'm not going to deliver your resume, but I do want to say thank you for all your contributions to this council and to Kirklees as a whole. You've been a fantastic member of our group, and it's been a pleasure working with you. You've been a great group whip, you've been a marvellous mayor, and I'll miss you. I'll miss you as much as I'm sure your colleagues and your constituents will. And I'd just like to say best wishes for the future, along to everyone else who's stepping down. Thank you.
Thank you, Vivian. Councillor Butts.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. This is a brief one to give time to others. I got to know Councillor Hussein well in 2015 when I was an aspiring candidate in the last bastion of socialism, which is Cleckheaton. His advice and help has endured over time. The respect he has in his ward is exemplary and testament to his sacrifice and commitment. And if I can emulate that even a little bit, I will consider myself successful. Councillor Mumtaz Hussein may hang his boots up, but I hope Mumtaz, the friend, the brother, the guide, will stay and continue helping and guiding. And I also want to take this opportunity to say thank you to all the colleagues retiring this time, Councillor Akhtar, Hill, Uppal, Mcbride, and of course yourself, Mr. Mayor. And I wish you all well in your future endeavours, and thank you for the service to your residents and this council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Butt. Councillor Smage.
I wasn't quite expecting just then, but thank you. From a scrutiny perspective, it's been mentioned about Councillor Patrick's time on scrutiny, and I would like to include my thanks for that as well. But I would also like to thank Councillor Uppal. It's not easy being a scrutiny lead member, and it's not easy when a work programme on economy and neighbourhoods is as wide-ranging as it is. But she has done the work with, and I think the word, I'll repeat the word that's been used already, integrity, absolutely. And her calm and measured professional approach has been really well respected by everybody. And especially when she had to cope with a calling, which in itself is a very difficult thing to do. But I'd just like to thank her from a scrutiny perspective for all her work in scrutiny, and all the best to everybody who's retiring. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Smage. Councillor Zaman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to thank my colleague, particularly Councillor Mahmood Akhtar, plus the others that are leaving. Firstly, Councillor Akhtar has served on the council for the last 18 years. I've known him in my previous life before I joined the council. He was already here when I arrived in 2017, and he's been a fantastic colleague. But before I do that, I'd like to thank him for the work he's carried out as Deputy Mayor over the year. I know it hasn't been an easy time for him due to his ill health and a number of other issues. And plus we've been in a pandemic, which hasn't helped. But however, you have tried your utmost best to ensure you serve the whole community and do your best in the role. Councillor Akhtar has got to be one of the most approachable people I know. He has a very unique quality of being warm, friendly, stress-free, and always happy. A proper chilled-out guy. This approach has served him well in representing his ward. He has contributed in his own quiet ways and got stuck in and cared about the communities he has served. He's been driven by his passion to make a difference. Councillor Akhtar has left his hallmark representing the Labour Party values and maintaining good relationships across the parties on the council. Personally, I want to thank you for all the advice and support you have given me and for everything you've done for your communities. Councillor Akhtar, who is known as our Baba, has shared his life experiences of his previous life in Pakistan as well as what he has learnt in the UK. And he's never failed to give up despite his health challenges, and I thank you for this. The group will miss you, I will personally miss you, and I wish you a long and happy life with good health and a very happy retirement. And now, Councillor Mumtaz Hussein, you have served this council with passion and dignity. I've admired your courage in dealing with issues, at times using your Desi style and your Desi language. Your forthright approach and compassion for colleagues has been exemplary. I wish you all the very best in your new venture and serving the community in your new role. I also want to thank Erin Hill and Peter Mcbride for their contributions. Your confidence and knowledge on issues has been awesome. I have learnt so much from you, and I wish you the very best for the future. And lastly, Harpreet Uppal. Harpreet was one of the first Sikh women to serve on the council, a brilliant representative and role model for the minority community. Her passion, knowledge, and the hard work that she has put into this role and worked alongside me has been delivered with distinction. Harpreet has been a voice for the voiceless, a voice for the vulnerable, and has taken the difficult task of holding officers to account on issues affecting communities in her scrutiny role. I've enjoyed working with her and sharing her skills, experience, and passion. I'm going to miss you, and hey, mate, I wish you all the very best for the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Zaman. Councillor Sokol.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Peter Mcbride, Labour Party stalwart. Mr. Mayor, I met first time Peter in 1971 general election, where Peter was election agent for that time MP Ken Lomas. You remember Peter? Yeah, long association. Peter actually brought me into a Labour Party. Am I right? Yeah. And he helped me to get elected councillor in 1981 for Paddock Ward. First time it was that time, Peter. Thank you. Peter has been a councillor for the last 30 years. Yeah? Yeah, might be more than. And during this time, he has been chair of many committees during in 1990s when we had a committee system. Now, as a cabinet portfolio for regeneration, Peter's work for Huddersfield Blueprint and Dewsbury regeneration will be remembered by future generation, Peter. Thank you. You've done a hard work. We will miss you, Peter, but I wish you happy retirement. Thank you. Councillor Mahmood Akhtar, I'm here, my friend. Councillor Mahmood been a councillor for 18 years. Councillor Akhtar is one of the gentlemen who always treat people with his big smile. Hello, how are you? Yeah, he's always, yeah, hello. Thank you, Councillor Akhtar. He's very dedicated. He's very dedicated to his role as a councillor. He was elected deputy mayor last year and supposed to be taking his role as mayor of Kirklees. But, sorry to say, this year, but due to his health reason, he decided to step down as a councillor. We will miss you, Mahmood. Well, at the same time, I wish you good health and happy retirement. Councillor Mumtaz Hussein. I know Councillor Mumtaz Hussein for many years. He's been a councillor for 16 years now, I think, yeah. And is well respected by his ward resident and the local community. Mumtaz was elected deputy mayor and mayor of Kirklees Council, and he is one of the first mayor who recorded his 2-year term as a mayor. In year 2020, when he's supposed to be going to be retired as mayor, he came to me during the lockdown, Mohan, I have been asked by chief executive to carry on another year. I said, carry on, what you looking for? If you don't want, I will do it. Mumtaz, you done a brilliant job as a mayor of the Kirklees, and I will have to say, Mumtaz done a hard work, brilliant work during his mayoralty year, helping in local community. Yeah. Well, Mumtaz, you decided to step down. I don't know, you might have some future plan, so I wish you good luck in your future plan. Mr. Mayor, Councillor Erin, Helen, Harpreet, Opal. We always, all the party, no Labour Party, we always try to encourage young people to be involved in politics and become councillor. But here we are losing 2 brilliant young councillors. So I met Councillor Erin Hill. I think it's in Erin 2008, when she was a student at Huddersfield New College. And I met him campaigning for Councillor Peter Mcbride in Dalton Ward. And he was I think, by-election, Peter, in 2008, I remember. So she was student on that late councillor, Molly Walton. Encouraged Erin, because she always call her my daughter. Molly always call her my daughter. She encouraged Erin to stand for councillor and was elected councillor in 2014 in Crossland Moor and Netherton Ward. Soon after becoming councillor, Erin was appointed as cabinet member for Children's Service, and currently she is chair of the Standards Committee. I know Erin have to look after a very young family as well. She might have some other plan. She's retiring, but we are missing you, Erin. Yeah, and I wish you all the best in future plan, Erin. Councillor Harpreet. Harpreet is another brilliant young generation councillor who was elected in 2016 for Ashborough Ward. Harpreet is well liked by all the members of the cross party. We have heard from Councillor Smith praising Councillor Harpreet as a brilliant councillor working in the council. By all member cross party and council officers. She is well liked by the council officer, not by councillors. Yeah, she is very committed to her role as a councillor and chair of the Economy and Neighbourhood Scrutiny Panel. Harpreet, who gone to Australia to see her sister, she didn't want to miss this meeting. She wanted to attend this meeting, but unfortunately, her flight was rearranged by the airline. That's why she is not here. So I wish all the best to Harpreet. Mr. Mayor, finally, you actually surprised all of us at the last council meeting by announcing you wish to step down as a councillor. I did not expect that time, yeah? Like Councillor Mumtaz Hussein, you have made a history by having been a deputy mayor for 2 years. Am I right? Yeah. You've done a brilliant job, and you're still doing a good job as a mayor of there. I have to commend you. However, I will miss you at the Huddersfield Planning Subcommittee and the Strategic Planning Committee meeting, where you always come to speak any application in your ward, either against or in favor. Yeah, you always entertain our meeting, planning meeting that time. I will miss that one, Mr. Mayor. However, you told us you might have another job. We wish you good luck in your new job, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you, Councillor Sokol. I must say I won't miss planning committees. Councillor Kendrick.
Fooled then, Mr. Mayor. I didn't know what order we were going in, but there we are. Whilst I join colleagues in thanks to all the people who are retiring this time, I don't intend to talk about each person, but I do have some special mentions. And I'll start with Councillor Akhtar, who, when I was a new councillor and standing for election, was so much help to me and gave me some really good advice, some good introductions. I was telling your daughter the other week, Councillor Akhtar, about how you and I hid behind some wheelie bins, but that's another story. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry that you're not going to be mayor. I think it's a great shame, but of course, health issues getting in the way. But thank you so much for the help you gave me. Thank you. So I want to talk then about Councillor Erin Hill. She's looking at me there. She's looking embarrassed. So she should be. No one could say that Erin was born under a lucky star when she was given the cabinet role for children and young people. This was a very difficult and trying time. It was shocking for all of us what came out, but Erin stepped up to the mark and dealt with issues with great confidence and great ability. It was, after all, a bit of a poisoned chalice that time, and I really admire how she managed it. I can only thank her for developing such a strong base for the improvement journey for children's services. And as Councillor Pandor has already said, without that foundation, it would be twice as hard as it is now. So thank you for that. However, I struggle to forgive her for poaching my sweeties and biscuits regularly, and bizarrely for filling the office with rubber ducks. And Councillor Hill, tonight I have several of your friends here for you, a bag full of them, which I intend to return to you. There's an exciting array of them, but they're all here ready for you, so thank you for that. I would also say I struggled to forgive her for selfishly going on maternity leave, not once, but twice, so that children's services was passed to me. But actually, I'm now so invested in it, I actually love it, so perhaps I have to say thank you as well. In conclusion, I would really like to thank Erin and acknowledge the sterling work she's done for this authority, and I hope you will all join in that, in thanking her. Thank you. And lastly, set to embarrass as many people as possible. Are you crying already, Peter? So, I've known Peter Mcbride for many years, Mr. Mayor. In fact, I have to confess, probably it's decades. We're not going to say how many. I knew him when I worked for the council, as he was so in touch with the people in his ward, with individuals' problems and needs, that he was a regular referrer to the benefit advice service that I managed. wanting advice and representation for his residents. For me, that is a really effective measure of a good walk councillor. There was a downside to this relationship, because when you became a go-to person for Peter, he rang you about everything, and it was sometimes like being a one-person councillor inquiry service. As a councillor, he's provided me with so much support and advice, and I will miss let's go for a coffee and talk about it. But probably I'm saying that because I think it's my turn to pay for the lunch, and I'm trying to Welsh out on that. Peter and I don't always agree on issues, which can lead to some very robust discussions, but never animosity or grudges. He has to be forgiven, ladies and gentlemen, for being a Middlesbrough Football Club supporter. And I assume yesterday's win over Birmingham 2-0 had him doing at least mental cartwheels, if not actual physical ones. But beware, Peter, we may not forgive you if you really challenge Town for promotion, so be very careful there. I've got great respect for his wide-ranging experience and knowledge, and have benefited on numerous occasions from his explanations and insights. Peter has contributed so much to Dalton Ward, so much to this council, so much to West Yorkshire. I would hope that everyone in this chamber and beyond recognise his hard work and contributions, for which we should all be thankful. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Kendrick. Councillor O'Donovan.
Mr. Mayor, I'm a bit on a hop as well. I thought the order was going to be a bit different, but I'd like to just obviously join colleagues in thanking everybody who's retiring from council. It is a massive service what you guys do. Sometimes I don't think the public understand the dedication, the time, the commitment you have to put into being a councillor, and thank you for everybody for the time they put in. Particular comments obviously from my colleague, Mumtaz. For those that don't know, Mumtaz was elected 16 years ago. Massive stint as a councillor. I met Mumtaz in, I think, 2009 at a branch meeting in St. Paulinus Parochial Hall up in West Town. One of my first introductions to local Labour Party politics. And do you know what? I had a few things to say, but actually the most recent conversation I had with Mumtaz was about an hour ago, and I want to start by what he said to me an hour ago. I said, how does it feel being here today on your last meeting? I said, how did it feel on your first one? He says, well, in a good way, it didn't really feel much. And I get what he meant. What he meant was, because what I know about Mumtaz, it was never really about being a councillor. It was about what he wanted to do for the community. The councillor was a byproduct of it, really. That was the vehicle that he needed to do more work for his community. And that's what he spent 16 years doing. So I totally get, where he's coming from when he says that it's not about necessarily being a councillor. It was about what he wanted to do for his community, and he spent 16 years doing that. He's spent time serving on West Yorkshire Fire Authority, the Police Authority, Licensing Committee, currently chair of the Planning Committee. And again, just like we said, it's a huge dedication of time and effort to fulfil those roles, as well as being a ward councillor. And although his children are grown up and he's got grandchildren now, clearly back 16 years ago, his children were much younger, and that is quite a sacrifice to make. I know how that feels. So many thanks for your support, Mumtaz. I think arguably Dewsbury West is one of the busiest wards in Kirklees. Mumtaz has always had a really open door policy. He can have his phone ringing at 7 o'clock in the morning, but I know he can have people knocking on his door at 10, 11 o'clock at night. And those are isolated occasions. That is quite a regular happening. And Mumtaz was always there for people. And I think one of the enduring memories and enduring thanks that people from Dewsbury West would give Mumtaz is that he was always there. He was always there on the phone, whatever it was. Some of it was a role that he probably never expected to be as a councillor, but he was always there for his community. So I wish him well, and I wish his family well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor O'Donovan. Councillor Amanda Pinnock.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to begin by acknowledging and saying farewell to all councillors who are stepping down this time around. I wish you all the best for the future, and I would like to thank you for your service. But there is one council in particular I'd like to talk about this evening, and that's my ward colleague, Councillor Harpreet Uppal, who's made a fantastic contribution to our team in Ashbrow. The first Sikh female, a trailblazer, a role model, and a credit to her community. I don't know what time it is in Australia right now, but Harpreet did say she'd be listening in to the live stream. So, hi Harpreet, where's the video? Where's the camera? Hi Harpreet, if you can see me. I hope your head's swelling, you know, with all the praises and everything that everybody's saying about you today. I think it's fantastic to hear such positive details about Harpreet and the wonderful work that she's done over 4 years. In such a short period of time, I should say as well. If I could describe Harpreet in 3 words, it would be hardworking, passionate, and a friend. The moment Harpreet was elected in Ashbrow, she sprung into action. She didn't ease herself into the role, she launched herself into the role, making a name for herself as a councillor who makes things happen. Harpreet came along with a wealth of experience. As you know, she works for an MP in Oldham. So she hit the ground running. And she hit the ground running, and she was non-stop for 4 years. If you know Harpreet, you know that she's passionate about people and wanting to make a difference in people's lives. And her aim was always to find a solution to make a tangible and impactful change, especially for the voiceless, those people who needed help the most. She always took the time to forge special relationships with residents, community groups, and other services. And within those 4 years, she made a real difference in the area. Finally, I would describe Harpreet as a friend, someone I can talk to, someone I worked really well with. She had that rare quality of promoting other colleagues and genuinely wanting to see others do well. When Harpreet was in the room, nobody got left behind. And I can honestly say not many people have that rare quality in abundance. Harpreet's legacy and hard work has not gone unnoticed, as we've heard here tonight, because so many people in the chamber have said so many wonderful things about her. But also it hasn't gone unnoticed in Ashbrow and beyond. And myself and James will endeavour to keep that legacy alive. So I would like to end by saying thank you, Harpreet, for your service and commitment to the community. I wish Harpreet all the success and prosperity on her journey, wherever life takes her, and I hope God continues to bless her along her journey. But for me, this isn't the end, because Harpreet lives a stone's throw away from my house, so I'm sure we will continue to see each other and continue with that friendship beyond the realms of this chamber. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Councillor Pinnock. Councillor Khan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to say good luck and best wishes for your retirement, Councillor Mcbride. His hard work and dedication is very much evident on the doorstep in the Dalton ward. He's loved by many, and he is very much part of the fixture and fittings in the ward and in the council and on cabinet. And many residents have expressed their gratitude many times for the help and assistance that you've provided. So thank you on their behalf and my behalf, Peter. However, it may surprise some members to hear me call Councillor Mcbride a cantankerous old man. He is, but he's our cantankerous old man and will be greatly missed by many. One of the most common questions that I ask Peter is, why are you arguing in agreement? And that encapsulates Peter's personality. Debate is second nature, even when he's in full agreement with colleagues. The three of us have worked really well together. We've had hot, passionate debates, not anything else. But we always work very closely and always have worked as a loyal team, the three of us, and you will be missed by Councillor Mather, despite what she might say. She's hiding her feelings, really. And I'd also like to wish all the councillors leaving the very best of luck. That's councillors Actor, Opal and Hill. And thank you so much for being fantastic colleagues. And a special goodbye and thank you to one of the best mayors, no offence to Councillor Patrick, I've seen during my term on council, and that is Councillor Hussein. He took to the road like duck like to water. And finally, good luck and best wishes to Mr. Mayor for his service. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Khan. Councillor Simpson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Firstly, I want to say thank you and best wishes to everyone who's standing down to you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillors Hussein and Akhtar. Thank you very much for your service to Kirklees and to your communities over the years. I just want to say something specifically for three individuals, and I'll try not to repeat other people too much, and I'll try to keep it quite brief. But firstly, to Peter, of course, for your incredible contribution to Kirklees, to West Yorkshire, as well as your community and the Labour Party over many years. I think it's difficult, if not impossible, to think of anyone who's done as much over such a sustained period in public service as you have in an area like ours, or anyone who will leave as much for legacy on our towns. So thank you very much for everything that you've done, Peter. You're going to be greatly and truly missed. Erin, just an incredibly intelligent and passionate person who's been a fantastic councillor and made a wonderful contribution to the borough, who I'm going to miss. I remember, I think it was about 3 years ago when we were back in the proper council chamber, should I call it, and she brought her then very young daughter into full council with her, who began to spontaneously weep when a discussion started on cuts to youth services. So clearly that political passion is hereditary. You're doing a fantastic job there, and you've done a fantastic job as a councillor as well. So thank you for what you've done for the council, for your community, and you're going to be, I'm going to miss you. And finally, to another member of the exclusive club that is the Kirklees Councillors Under 50s Club, and that's Harpreet. I was genuinely really shocked when I found out that Harpreet wasn't standing for re-election and was stepping down from the council, and I've struggled to find the right words to describe it, because I really like and admire and have got on with Harpreet, and I'm still struggling for the right words now. So I'll say quite simply that she's such a warm, nice, generous, fundamentally good person. And when I joined the council, I immediately knew that she was someone that you'd just love to be around. If you walked into a council meeting and you saw that Harpreet was there, you knew you had a friend in the room, and that that hour or two that you were going to be in there wasn't going to be the worst hour or two of your day. And it's been said by others, but she's made an immense contribution in such a short space of time, with dignity and integrity and just pure hard work. So thank you, Harpreet, for being kind, for being an incredible councillor, and for being a good friend.
Thank you, Councillor Simpson. Councillor Ahmed.
Mr. Mayor, I need to put my specs on. My 2020 doesn't work. Not anymore. Okay, I'd just like to thank everybody for the contributions, and also wish all the councillors that are actually leaving. I mean, I stand here today with a bit of sadness, really, as some of my close colleagues and friends are leaving in the council, because I've been a councillor now for 16 years as well, and I did come here as one of the young councillors as well at the time, if I can remember, that far long ago. And I want to start firstly by talking about Councillor Mumtaz Hussein. And you obviously will always be remembered as the first mayor who served here for 2 years in the office in the pandemic, but I've known Mumtaz a lot longer than that, probably a lot longer than everybody in this room. I think we've got a family affiliation as well. His mum, God rest her soul, and my mum, God rest her soul, were very close friends. And my mum passed away one year, and then fortunately his mum passed away the following year. His dad came here as a migrant in the 1950s with my dad. They both came together on the same plane, and they worked in the same factory together at the same time and lived in the same house with about 15, 20 other people, I believe, at the time. So I've got a lot of affiliation with Councillor Mumtaz Hussein in terms of that. But I really got to know Mumtaz with his very brief spell at Birkdale High School. And I think he just came for a brief spell, and I think within a week, he quickly ended up going to Westborough High School. So I don't know what that was and why he ended up at Westborough High School from Birkdale to Westborough. But we became very good friends over the years, and he's not just a friend, he's a brother. And actually, he's older than me by a year, I think. He keeps saying he's younger than me by a year, but I think I know his date of birth. And I think his children have told me his date of birth as well. So I definitely know that. But he's represented Dewsbury West constituents with great pride and passion. I know Councillor Donovan and obviously Councillor Mercedes Pervez is not here today, would have echoed those sentiments as well in terms of how he's represented his ward. And he's a really hard-working individual, especially in a deprived constituency as well, and with the challenges we're currently facing, and obviously he's been facing in his time. I mean, I'm personally really proud of what Mumtaz has achieved, and I remember something going back many years ago in Dewsbury Sports Centre when we first stood to become councillors, and I don't know what made us want to stand as councillors. It was an all-out election, and I think we both lost by 100 votes each, which was quite funny, and he goes to me, "Not again," and I goes, "Not again," but unfortunately we are where we are after 16 years. But on another note, like I said, I'm really personally proud of him, and I don't want to get him emotional and all that, but I know his parents, who I was close with, and obviously his older brother, who's no longer around, would have been very proud of what he's achieved as the mayor of Kirklees, but as well as a councillor in his time. And I wish him and his family and his children and grandchildren as well. And I know we've got good affiliation with the family, with his children and grandchildren. So I wish him all the best, and hope I didn't make him emotional or anything like that. But he knows I'm always going to be around for him as his younger brother, he says. Moving on to Councillor Erin Hill. I know she's smiling at the back. Viv's already taken my thunder about the ducks in the Cabinet Office. I remember my couple of years in the Cabinet Office for schools, community safety and cohesion. That desk behind her was full of ducks. Table, desk, everywhere is ducks, ducks, ducks. And I remember I went to a conference, and funny enough, this solicitor's firm was had ducks there as well, because you can't get away from these ducks. So I ended up bringing a few ducks back, and I said, "Erin, here's a few ducks and some pens for your table as well." But what I did find about Erin is her highly intelligent. She's very intelligent and a very well-grounded politician, and really did make sound decisions in terms of what she did, especially with the Children's Services portfolio that she held. And I know it was a difficult time, and I know when we were both in portfolio meetings, it was difficult times, and some real difficult decisions were being made, and you know, we had some challenging times as well, and we need to make some bold decisions. But I will miss you, Erin, I really will, and I wish you all the best with your young family. And I know what it's like, because I've got some grandkids as well, trust me, it's not easy. Peter, where do I start with you? Again, Viv's known you longer, and so has Moan, but obviously I've known you when I first started as a councillor, and I know for any councillor that starts, mentoring and having a mentor is something I'd always wanted to have. And to be honest with you, and I'm not just saying this, but having you around helped a lot. And how you stood up for people with your strong Labour values and knowledge and planning issues, and the contribution you've obviously made in the full council, and obviously the lead centre developments. But what I noticed about you, you're always there. And I remember at one point when I was having some really difficult times with, it's now called the Dewsbury Riverside, but at the time with a lot of contentious planning issues. I remember you rang me once, I think, and I was thinking, how is he awake? I think it was 12:30 or 1 o'clock at night. You rang me and I'm thinking, really, Peter, why are you ringing me for that? He rang me just to see how I was. And that epitomises you, Peter, in a nutshell. And you've always been there, and my time on cabinet with yourself and other colleagues, you've always supported me. And I'd just like to thank you for all the support you've given me as a cabinet member and as a councillor, and you will be missed. And I know sometimes always sticks in my mind about your car parked in the car park. And I don't know why I keep, with all those paperwork, because whenever I go past your car, I think, all that paperwork still in his car is Peter Mcbride's car. But anyway, that's me for you. Sorry about that, just thought I'd throw that one in. So just apologies for that. Harpreet, what can I say? I only really got to know Harpreet, and she's already leaving. And everybody's already said that from all the other political parties in terms of what an asset she would have been and what a councillor she is in terms of her integrity and her passion and professionalism. So I'm really going to miss her. Didn't get a chance to spend a great deal of time with her. And again, last but not least, I didn't realise the mayor was leaving until he briefly mentioned it to me in a meeting that he was leaving. And I wish you, Nigel, and the mayor all the best. And only just got to know you very briefly in the last couple of weeks whilst visiting the mayor's office. And thank you for some of the advice that you've given me. And I wish you all the best. And again, I wish all of those councillors that are leaving all the very best for the future, whatever you're doing. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ahmed. Councillor Paul Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Like other speakers, I'd certainly like to thank all retiring councillors. It's a huge commitment being a councillor, and I'm obviously 3 years in, absolutely finding out how tough that is. So well done, everybody. I think you've shown great commitment and service to your communities. I want to talk about two of our councillors that are going, and one of them sat in front of me, Peter. I've only worked with Peter for 3 years, which is a great disappointment to me. I wish it was a hell of a lot longer. And my admiration has grown and grown over that time. He's a man of really strong socialist values who cares deeply about people. And what I find remarkable is his ability to actually deliver on those values and make things happen through huge determination and resilience. He has a really a great common touch. I've been out for coffee with him a few times, and he can talk to anybody in a way which is not patronising. He connects with people, and that's something which quite often is rare. So, you know, we're going to miss that, Peter, so much. And my first sort of, if you like, dealings with Peter was even before, I think, I was a councillor, and that was the famous Holmfirth road scheme, which I think Peter's going to have nightmares about for a long, long time. But it demonstrated his integrity. Peter was driving that scheme forward, but give a clear assurance that he would listen to our community.
albeit that he felt the first scheme was a sensible scheme. And he was true to his word. And that, Peter, I can tell you, there are so many people in the Valley hold you in great esteem because of that. And also, it's not been mentioned, but I actually think Peter's got a wicked sense of humour. You know, there may be that cantankerous bit, possibly, I don't see that, but certainly he's got a really good sense of humour. And once again, going to miss that. Peter, you're a huge loss. I know you're still going to contribute to the Labour Party and to your community, and it's been fantastic working with you. And forget the coffee, we'll grab that pint at some point as well. The other councillor mentioned, and she's again been mentioned, is Harpreet. And if Harpreet's watching, enjoy the weather in Australia at the moment, and hope things are going okay over there. And it is a huge shame to lose her. I said this to her over a coffee as well. From my perspective, she was always looking to make a positive difference. And one of the things about Harpreet was she was focused on helping people and absolutely never thought about her own personal political gain. It never even crossed her mind. And again, for me, that has to be admired. And I think people, residents, actually respect that. She's very bright, people already said that, has really good skills as a chair, and has that ability to work across parties and make everybody in those meetings feel that they've had the ability to contribute and to be heard. So we're going to miss Harpreet, absolutely. And once again, I'll say to everybody that is going, you know, thanks on behalf of your communities, I'm sure. Your commitment and service will certainly be remembered. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we move on, can I ask that you keep your tributes as tight as possible, please, because we've got deputations and there's a school that want to speak. So if you can, we haven't got many more speakers now, but if you can keep them nice and concise, that'd be good. Thank you. Yeah. Well, as I say, I've just asked that you be quick with your tributes. If we do that, we can just keep going through. We can get this out of the way and we keep going through. Yeah. Look. Does everybody feel the same about that? Right, okay then, we'll bring deputations to the fore. So item 5, deputations and petitions. We'll just hear the first, no, we'll hear them all actually. And then we'll go back, otherwise it's going to get very messy. So, to receive deputations and petitions from members of the public, with 3 deputations. First, can I invite the pupils of Spring Grove Junior School, Junior and Infant School to please come forward and present their deputation. And I'm going to do the lot. Obviously. Welcome to the meeting, young man. You have 5 minutes with your colleagues there to present your deputation to the council. Thank you.
Good evening and welcome. We are representatives from the school council at Spring Grove Junior Infant and Nursery School. Our names are Hassan, Hiban, Priya, Ismail and Summer. We are an outstanding school situated in the centre of Huddersfield, just behind the Lay Centre, sandwiched between the roads of Bow Street and Water Street. The map you have in your pack show our exact location. We are a happy and successful school, but we have a really big problem, which has been going on for some time and is getting worse. Our big issue is traffic congestion outside our school at the start and end of the school day. It is worse between 8:45 a.m. to 9 a.m. and 3:05 p.m. to 3:20 p.m. Our whole school community is in danger, but particularly our children. Cars are breaking the law by parking on the zigzag as well as speeding. There are some photographs to demonstrate some of the dangerous parking in your parks, but it is often worse than this. You can clearly see how some parents are ignoring the yellow zigzags. What you can't see from the photographs is how fast some of our parents drive down these roads next to our school. The speed limit is 30 miles per hour, but we know that they go much faster and often come to a screeching stop in the middle of the road and sometimes abandon their cars there as well. It is very surprising, in fact a miracle, that no one has been seriously injured or worse. We would like the speed limit reduced to 20 miles per hour on Bow Street and Water Street to help protect our children and families. We wonder why this has not already happened, as most schools have a 20 mile per hour speed limit enforced around their school. Our children would love to help to design the new speed limit signs.
Additionally, we would like to invest in the traffic cones that you see in your pack. We believe parents are less likely to knock the cones out of the way if they are in the shape of children. The school council hope to raise the money for these themselves. We would also ask the council to repaint the yellow zigzags as they are very faded in places.
There is also the secondary issue of pollution and its effect on asthma sufferers, including me. Currently, we have 35 children with inhalers in school and a child with chronic lung disease. We have seen a steady rise in inhaler use over the last few years. We all know how bad pollution is for all children, but particularly people with asthma. In a very recent survey, over 50% of parents have said they would be interested in the idea of a walking bus, and you can see a potential route marked on the map in your pack. In Walk to School Week, which begins on May the 17th, we are going to trial a walking bus for the whole week. If it is successful, we would like to run a walking bus for our very local pupils from September 2022. But this would mean we need to pay an adult to organise this. This would cost us roughly £2,000. We wondered if there was some funding which we could apply for to help us with. In addition, we would like to plant up planters around the perimeter of our school with plants or trees that are known to help get rid of pollution fumes from cars. Research shows that birch, yew and elder trees are particularly good for this.
Our school budget has already been allocated for the next year on the vital necessities we need in school. Consequently, we would like you to help us in the following ways. Rezone Water Street and Bow Street to 20 miles per hour with new sign. Put speed bumps on Water Street and Bow Street and repaint yellow zigzags. Help us to fund a walking bus and put us in touch with funding partners who might be able to support us further. As a school, we believe in the power of democracy and local government, and the safety of our whole school community is of the utmost importance to us.
Thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak directly to you and for listening to our proposition. I hope we have been able to persuade you to help us and look forward to your response.
Thank you for your excellent deputation. Can I invite Councillor Mather to respond, please?
Thank you, everyone. You know, they're getting younger every day, aren't they? So you did very well. And I listened to you very closely. And I know how difficult it is. Climate change is a key issue for us as a district. And it is something that I believe young people can help us with by talking to their parents in how to drive and where to stop. So that's one thing. And people usually say, Councillor Mather, can you help us? And I usually say from the bottom of my heart, regardless of me putting a double-decker bus in front of the school, the parents would still park on top. So it's not very good at the moment. Walking bus, amazing. It's the kind of things that we promote, and will be also, the council will be conducting in the near future a consultation regarding 20-mile speed limit in all the schools in our district. So we'd like to thank Spring Grove School for their deputation, their interest in road safety outside of their school. Safety of pedestrians, particularly yourselves, is a key component of our road safety strategy. And as such, officers will be more than happy to work with you and your school to better understand the issues that you believe you face and to work with you to formulate a plan of action that will meet all our objectives around safety, sustainability, and active travel. Officers will contact the school directly to arrange a meeting and to discuss these issues with me. And I don't mind coming either. I know exactly where your school is based. I'm there every year during election time, but because it's not in my ward, I will come and sit with you and we will work through this. And I am delighted that you've come here with this deputation. It's very close to my heart, and I want us all to feel to feel safe using our roads, using those pedestrians and children and parents using their cars to be very careful of how they use cars in urban areas surrounding the schools. So thank you very much, and I look forward to meeting you at your school. Thank you.
So thank you, Councillor Mather. We now go back to the tributes. Councillor Marchington.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'll keep my tributes brief. Yeah, just a big thank you to all those councillors who are retiring for the time they've spent. Best wishes to Mumtaz and Mahmood for your time. We've been on the council for a similar amount of time. Hope you have a pleasant retirement or whatever and the thing you go on to next. Quite a few people talked about Harpreet Upal and the contributions he's made. And I just want to make that cross-party. I mean, she's been a brilliant colleague on the Overview and Scrutiny Management Committee. She's worked really well with Liz as chair, Andrew Cooper, and Habiban. It's been a brilliant team, and she'll be sadly missed. And that sort of thoughtful contribution. And again, the way that it wasn't easy for her to lead the call-in last summer, but the way she dealt with that and opened all the issues was absolutely brilliant. I was speaking to Robert and Christine Idell the other week, and Erin's name came up, and I know within our group, Erin, you are very highly regarded, and Christine particularly appreciated the conversations you've had. It was great when you were elected to the council to really, practically diversify us by being a young person. It's brilliant to have young people as a member of the council. You're a trailblazer. It's great to have Josh here as well, and bringing that perspective. But also as a parent of young children, and the fact that you took maternity leave, and we had a discussion about parental leave. And I'm sorry to see you go, because it's actually, we really need a diverse group of people who can serve their communities and their circumstances. But certainly our group wishes you all the best in your future, and wishes you well. I'm going to spend a little bit more time, but still be brief about Peter Mcbride and yourself, Nigel, because we have three different political views, ways of looking at the world, and we are quite different. But what you both remind me of, and us, our group of, is that politics is a process, and it's a process that needs diversity. And it needs people who are willing to speak up for what they believe in and engage with that. So, Peter, I appreciate the times when, over the years, you have challenged things that I've said and our group has said, but also when you have thoughtfully appreciated the other people's points of view. And I've said it before, but other councils, one of the best debates we've had in the time I've been a member of the council is when you and John Smithson worked together, and we had a cross-party consultation and a cross-party debate, and it was a really good debate based on views that John Smithson and yourself had facilitated and coordinated. So I appreciate that you have your own strongly held political beliefs, you articulate those, but also you are willing to see the other person's point of view. And I could give other examples of that, but I think that's just briefly what I want to say. Nigel, I would say the same about you. You've got your strong political beliefs. You're open about those. You were chair of one of the first scrutiny panels I worked on. But what I saw you doing is, as a chair of a scrutiny panel, look at the other people's point of view and try and include those, even those when those views were not your own. And I'm not sure everybody, but that I think, and for all of us to learn that lesson, to see the other person's point of view, to understand it, even when we don't agree with it, is really important. That's part of the political process that we can all learn from. And I also just, on a more personal, appreciate, we've worked together as group business managers, and we've those conversations that we had that are not in the public domain, and I appreciated the conversations and the contributions you made to my political life in a non-party political way. And so I again wish you all the best in what lies ahead. I'm not quite sure, I don't think you've told us quite what you're going to do. I hope it's something that's interesting, exciting, and wish you well, Peter, in your retirement as well. So thank you both, and thank you to all the others who are retiring this time.
Thank you. It's no secret, Councillor Marchington, I've got a job with the Kirkwood, so that's what I'm going to do. So, Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I will keep these brief. I also want to echo a lot of what's been said in thanking everyone who's stepping down this time, because it is a commitment to public service that people make. All of us are available at all hours almost, so it is a hell of a commitment that you've made, and those of you that have served, and Peter, I can't believe you've been on the council for nearly 50 years. It's an amazing commitment, amazing achievement as well. I just wanted to echo some of the comments that have been said about Harpet as well, because I've worked with her through scrutiny, found her a brilliant chair of scrutiny, and like a number of other people have said today, I was quite surprised to hear her stepping down and saddened by that to an extent, because I think she's got a lot to offer, and I hope whatever she chooses to do in the future, she will find that right place and that opportunity to help her community and others. And I can't believe she's in Australia when we're talking about her. I'd also like to thank the Mayor, particularly this year where he's come to my community as the civic office and as a representative. And it's been great to see him engaging with people and engaging with sort of various ages and different groups, and I would like to thank him personally for that. I've learned stuff from Nigel. I'm here as the deputy leader of my group, partly because he kind of suggested that I step up a little bit, so I have that to thank him for as well, or you may blame him for, as you may choose to. I'd also like to just thank Peter as well. We don't always see eye to eye, but just very recently I've had cause to ask for his help with 2 planning applications in my ward that seemed to get stuck and weren't getting anywhere. And surprise, surprise, fortnight later, we've got decisions on those. So I think it would be wrong of me not to publicly acknowledge that, Peter. So thank you for that as well. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Lawson.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for the brief interval. Thanks for indulging us and letting the deputation speak. Really just to add the cross-party nature and the appreciation of everybody's contribution who is standing down this time. We all give of our time. We all sacrifice time with our families and our loved ones. Our shops become surgeries. Our schoolyards become street surveys. And like it or not, that's the commonality that we have. We all have that shared experience. We all have that shared respect of one another. I will miss the passion, the sincerity, wisdom, commitment, sacrifice, and let's face it, longevity that you've all shown. But I am going to let you all decide who's who. So in short, Mr. Mayor, I do wish everybody the best of luck in their future careers or their retirements. And Mr. Mayor, on a short note, I'd like to thank you personally for the patience that you've shown over the last year in your current position. And thank you personally as well for the drier sides in planning committees when I thought I was losing the will to live. There were bright moments in a dark sea. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good luck, everybody.
Thank you, Councillor Lawson. Councillor McLaughlin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will be brief as well. I just want to give a tribute and a thanks to everybody who's leaving, but in particular, a friend, Erin Hill, who has been an amazing encouragement to me from my days as a very, very young activist in the Labour Party to my days as a relatively young councillor in the Labour Party. To the extent of ferrying me around to various canvassing and campaigning events, educating me about all the secrets of the Labour group and the council and everything that was going on, which you probably shouldn't have been sharing. I remember an event 6 or 7 years ago where we were celebrating the 125th anniversary of the Colne Valley Labour Party, oldest in the world, but I'll just leave that there. And you claim to be the youngest councillor in Kirklees, not only the youngest, but you could go away, relive your entire life again, and still be the youngest councillor in Kirklees. Thankfully, that's changed a little bit now. There's a few of us in the under 50 club, I will, and others. I don't think I'd be here without your encouragement and your advice, so thank you very much. From the bottom of my heart, you are fiercely intelligent and a wonderful mother, and Molly would be very proud of you. And I'm sure you'll be fantastic in wherever it is you're going next. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McLaughlin. Councillor Bellamy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I'll also keep this brief. And I thank all those that are stepping down, and I wish you all the best. However, in particular, I'd just like to thank Nigel for all his work. I've known Nigel for more years than I've been on this council, and for a short time he was in fact my councillor as well. I also worked with Nigel when I was a member of Colne Valley Parish Council, and he did a lot of work ensuring that the Civic Hall was secured and saved as a community building. And I know that the Home Firth community thank him for that. He's always been a valuable member of the Colne Valley Association as well, and has given me some great advice over the years, and has always been my first port of call for advice. So I'd just like to thank him for all that as well. And I do really wish you the best for the future. And Nigel, please do stay in touch, and even if it is just to tell me to give up smoking.
Thank you, Councillor Bellamy. Councillor Firth. Donald.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would first of all like to give my thanks to all those councillors who are retiring in May. It's not a easy job, as you will all imagine, by any means. It isn't a bed of roses. In fact, I find sometimes it can be a bed of thistles. But thank you for all that you've done, regardless of politics. But I'm here up tonight to say thank you to my colleague of 20-odd years, Nigel, Councillor Patrick, who started life on the Orme Valley Parish Council some 20 plus years ago, and he finished up there at the top ladder as chairman of the council. When he retired from there, of course, he got on Kirklees, and he's been there since, 2002. And he's been a good working colleague. We haven't always hit it off, you know. It's not always been a bed of roses, but we've always managed to bury the hatchet, I think, when we have our spats. He's been a good colleague, and we're sorry to miss him. He started life, by the way, as a gamekeeper, really, and then turned poacher because he was on Leeds City Council as a highways officer for a number of years before he came on to Kirklees as a councillor. So he was quite useful because we could see the other side of what of being an officer to being a councillor. I've never been an officer, but I've always been a councillor, and he was also very good. If you asked him a question, he could invariably answer it. Anyway, Nigel, thanks for all you've done, lad, and I wish you well in your new enterprise. And thank you to all the councillors who are retiring in May. You've all done a good job, and as I say, it's not easy by any manner. And thanks anyway. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Firth. Did you withdraw your wish to speak, Councillor Bolt? You didn't? Oh, that's a great pity. I have to say Councillor Bolt then.
And in gratitude to that, I will make my speech shorter than it was going to be on this one person off. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Colleagues, being a councillor is about making choices, weighing up options and arriving at a decision, often a difficult one, and then having to stick with that choice. So we can appreciate the anguish which all our colleagues have gone through tonight, none more so than Councillor Upal. I mean, Harpreet must have really had a difficult decision. Does she come here in Huddersfield and sit with us, or does she go to Australia with her family where they're in the middle of summer? It's a difficult decision, Mr. Mayor. I wouldn't like to have made that one myself. I had the joy of working with Harpreet, and it was a joy on scrutiny for some years. Her fairness and inclusivity and her professionalism was something that I've enjoyed. We've done scrutiny call-ins, we've worked with officers, we've held the cabinet to account, and her ability and aptitude is something that I think everybody recognises. I'm sure we're in no doubt that at some point Harpreet will come back and make a success of politics, but in taking a leaf out of David Sheard's book, I hope it's not round here. Councillor Mcbride, Peter. Now, to some uninformed people, it may seem that Peter and I have an adversarial relationship. It's more like one of a critical friend. But for those of you who know Star Wars, a long, long time ago in a galaxy far away, the roles were reversed. I was the portfolio holder, and Peter was my critical friend as scrutiny lead. We had some interesting times there, both working in the council, but at that time, we were charged by the council to attend many conferences and events. Often we'd have officer support, and I'm sure they drew lots to see who had to come with us, Peter, because the discussions would start as we set off on the train. They'd continue through the conference, through dinner, and then at drinks after. And I think officers were sometimes looking at the watch, Peter, and going, maybe some councillors are now officers. What time is it? During that time, and it's already been alluded to, we worked very well. We're in challenging time as a council with no overall control. And we set up an all-party transport group, recognising that whoever was in the seat had difficult decisions to make. Councillor Hall had mentioned Peter's service, and I must admit, David, it's something that I'd not thought of. So I went outside and had a look at the boards. And as you do, and in tribute to Peter, I started on the left. I must say, Peter, you weren't on that board. That was when Huddersfield Council was started in 1868. Progressing on, you weren't on the next one, the Jubilee board, or the Centenary board, but there you are on the final curtain of Huddersfield Council, Peter Daniel Mcbride. And as many have said, it's a tribute to your service to the public in this area, Peter, in all your aspects. Mr. Deputy Mayor, the archetypal silent man. Seldom speaks, but when he does, everybody listens. And at planning committees, he sits there weighing up all the comments that have been made and comes to the difficult decisions. And I know, Mr. Mayor, you've made some difficult, Mr. Deputy Mayor, you've made some difficult decisions in Murfield, but we all respect the time that you've put into them. Erin has been mentioned, and I think when I first met her when I was mayor, and someone said, oh, this is Erin. She's standing to be a councillor, so congratulations. And they said, for the Labour Party. But as we've heard, she was well mentored, and Molly grew up in the Labour Party with a lot of other firebrands of the type that Erin has become in council, where she brooks no nonsense. As we heard, Molly was the first debater at that time with Betty Boothroyd and Murfield's own G. Mackay. And I suspect there's still some strong links there, because I was told by Alistair, Jean and Tom's son, that Tom Mackay came down for a debating competition and he lost that against Jean. And I suspect in your house, Erin, the same will apply. Mr. Mayor, Councillor Mumtaz is somebody that I had the opportunity to liaise with, being in adjoining wards. We worked on many community issues. We shared events during both our civic years, and you could see the enormous pride that he and his family have had in the honour that he's had of being the first citizen. He brought his own approach to the mayoralty, when necessary, relaxed and informal, and sometimes to the chagrin of officers, where he'd say, oh, just stop off and we'll call in an extra event. But as has been said, he served through some difficult times, and we all thank him for that. Mr. Mayor, you've asked me to be brief, so I will, and I shall content myself on this occasion by saying I said enough nice things about you when I proposed you to that office. Thank you for your service, Mr. Mayor. Good luck with what you're doing, and all the best to you and Judith. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I just add my own appreciation as Mayor of Kirklees to all the councillors who are retiring, who have served their wards well and this borough. Thank you. I don't believe there are any announcements by the Chief Executive, unless she's thought of something in the 2 hours this has taken so far, to get to item 2. Apologies for absence. Are there any apologies for absence? Councillor Munro.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to give apologies for Councillor Kath Pinnock, as she's having to speak on some disagreeable legislation at the House of Lords.
Thank you. Councillor Richards.
Councillor Andrew Cooper's apologies. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have apologies from Councillors Michael Watson and Kath Taylor. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Sokol. Oh, there's another one.
Apologies. I don't think I was on the ball. It's also Councillor Melanie Stephen. Thank you.
Councillor Sokol.
Mr. Mayor, apology from Councillor Harpreet Opal and Councillor Musra Parvez. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more apologies? No. Sorry? Oh, Councillor Warner. Yeah. Item 3, minutes of the previous meeting. I move that the minutes of the meeting of the Council held on the 16th of February 2022 be approved as record. Is that seconded? Can we please vote by show of hands? I think that must be carried. Thank you. Four declarations of interest. Members who have any disclosable pecuniary interests which would prevent them from discussing or voting on any item should disclose their interest now. Are there any interests to declare? No, that's fine. If you think of any, I'm going to remind you to fill in the form and pass it to the clerk at the end of the meeting. Right, we get back to item 5, Deputations and Petitions. Can I now invite Heather Peacock to please come forward and present her deputation? I'm sorry for the long wait. Welcome to the meeting. You've got 5 minutes to present your deputation to Council.
Okay. I'm speaking on behalf of Huddersfield Eco-Activism Network. On the 28th of February, the IPCC released its latest report on the climate crisis. The report is made up of thousands of scientific papers published each year. Its objective is to provide governments with scientific information so they can develop climate policies. In a passionate speech on the publication of the report, the United Nations Secretary said, "People on the planet are getting clobbered now by climate change. Nearly half of humanity is living in a danger zone now. Many ecosystems are at the point of no return now. The world's biggest polluters are guilty of arson on our only home now. We are being frog-marched to destruction now." The report concludes the world is facing devastating and cascading risks from the worsening climate crisis. It states the scientific evidence is unequivocal. Climate change is a threat to human well-being and the health of the planet. Any further delay on concerted global action will miss a brief and rapidly closing window to secure a livable future. We need to live up to this challenge. The report says that climate impacts are already more worsening and severe than expected. Climate change is causing widespread disruption in every region of the world. It's harming species and whole ecosystems. Droughts, extreme heat and record floods already threaten food security and livelihoods of millions of people. Wildfires and scorching are larger in area than ever before. 3.3 billion people are already highly vulnerable to climate impacts. Mass die-offs of species from trees to coral are already underway. Ecosystems are losing their ability to absorb carbon dioxide, turning them from carbon sinks to carbon sources. Already since 2008, 20 million people have been displaced by extreme weather events. We had severe flooding here in Kirklees in February. The most recent report doesn't focus on solutions to climate change. That will be in April. On behalf of the Huddersfield Eco-Activist Network, we are asking Kirklees Council for strong climate leadership. We ask specifically for a climate action plan and a cancellation of new road schemes, especially the A629 Phase 5, which involves felling 126 mature trees. Kirklees Council scored 0% on the Council Climate Plan scorecards because we don't have a plan. Obviously, we know things are happening at the Council with regards to climate change, but we definitely need a plan. At February's Cabinet meeting, the Civic Society spoke about the biodiversity net gains, which was brilliant and an issue that really needs looking at. Kelly Walters spoke about the cockleback situation regarding lapwings, which are a protected species. Councillor Simpson mentioned that climate emergency is not just about carbon, it's about biodiversity. I would like the Council to look at declaring an ecological emergency to tackle the loss of species here. The pressures of climate change, intensive agriculture, unsustainable uses of resources and continuing development are causing an ecological emergency. The result is our local wildlife is in decline at an alarming rate. Local to me on this issue, last year, for the first time since I've lived in Millsbridge, the swifts didn't nest by my house. In conclusion, the IPC report from February is worrying reading. Climate change is already underway with devastating consequences for our planet. It may already be too late to reverse some of the damage. We ask for strong leadership from our council, and we desperately need a climate action plan. And for me personally, I'd like to see the council declare an ecological emergency so we can try and save the many magnificent species we have in Kirklees. That's it.
Thank you, Heather, for that.
Okay.
Can I invite Councillor Simpson to reply?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Heather, for being with us and particularly for waiting so long. Yeah, and thank you for everything that you've said. I really do appreciate it. We absolutely share your concerns about the consequences of climate change. That's why we declared a climate emergency in the first place and why we continue to take action to address these impacts and reach our ambitious target of being carbon neutral by 2038 in the entire borough, not just as a council. We recognise the need for urgent action, and in fact we do have an action plan which we commonly refer to as our phase 1 actions. I'm proud to say that we completed those actions and have gone further than them, and we're now working on the development of our phase 2 climate action plan, which I'll speak about a little bit more later. We do know that we need to go further. Everyone needs to go further. The new detailed action plan will define how we as an authority continue to work to our 2038 net zero target for the district. But I must just say once again that since the climate emergency declaration, as you've acknowledged, Heather, we haven't been sitting still or sitting on our hands. We've overachieved against our previous target, which was a 40% council emissions reduction. We achieved a 53.5% a year early. We've sourced all of our council energy from 100% renewable sources for council buildings and schools, which has cut our district's carbon usage by 17,250 tonnes a year. We're directly planting tens of thousands of trees each year and leading the White Rose Forest, which is planting 7 million in North and West Yorkshire by 2025. We've made a £1 million investment in our own fleet to convert to electric and low-emission vehicles and 1 million in EV charging. We've converted 97% of our streetlights to LEDs. We've launched a retrofitting pilot, which I was pleased to visit with the Deputy Leader and Leader today, which is achieving a 75% carbon saving for the tenants in those properties and saving them £350 a year on their bills, which of course speaks to the climate justice and inequality agenda as well as the carbon reductions. We've also launched studies into the energy performance of our council properties so we can roll it out more widely as funds become available, and we're developing plans to build new developments for the council homes to low carbon standards and passive house standards. We know we've got we've created and invested in our Independent Climate Commission. We've got our outline business case for the Huddersfield Heat and Power Network, which will take low carbon heat and power to the town centre. And in this year's budget, we had £13 million for the Cultural Heart Sustainability Strategy, £6 million to green our fleet in the next 12 months alone, which accounts for the biggest ever investment in green our fleet, and £1 million for the Passive House pilot and more. But as I've said, we can't stop at those things. There's much more to do. We can't rest on our laurels, and we will do that. So going forward, we will have our phase 2 action plan in place by this summer, but we're not simply going to stop there. We don't think a single piece of paper, a single document is enough. We want to go further. So we are also going to deliver a climate risk and vulnerability assessment to help adapt to the change that we know is already locked in by global climate change for the entire borough. And in the next 12 months, we're also going to deliver a comprehensive environmental sustainability strategy. This is going to be a partnership document, so the scope will be determined in consultation with others. It will not only look at climate, net zero and adaptation, but wider environmental issues as well, as you've mentioned. This strategy is going to sit at the top tier of the council strategies with the highest priority under the council plan. Having an environmental sustainability strategy sat alongside our other three top-tier strategies, which is our health and wellbeing, inclusive communities, and economic strategy, means that we have all areas of sustainability comprehensively addressed, social, economic, and environmental, under the council's priorities. We must address the climate emergency, and we are doing that, and it will continue to be a key priority. But we also need to address the other areas and issues in the environment as well, as you've mentioned. We could get carbon to net zero, and areas will still have environmental issues like poor air quality or ecological and natural decline. We can address carbon and still live beyond our planetary boundaries by creating more pollution or using more natural resources than the planet can cope with. So if we want a healthy planet, climate, carbon is absolutely key, but so are the other areas as well. So that's what we'll seek to deliver through phase 2, through our climate risk assessment, and through our top-tier environmental sustainability strategy. We absolutely want a sustainable Kirklees as well as a zero-carbon Kirklees, and that's what this administration is committed to delivering.
Thank you, Councillor Simpson. Thank you.
I've got a question. Don't
No,
do it now.
no, do it. Come back.
Come back. Right.
Come back, I'm afraid. A bit later. Can I now invite Michael Drapan to please come forward and present his deputation? Welcome, Michael. Welcome to the meeting. You have 5 minutes to present your presentation, deputation to Council.
Mr Mayor, Council, first of all, thank you for allowing me, on behalf of the Ukrainian community in Huddersfield, to visit you and to witness the beautiful garland that's been placed alongside your mace. It's bedecked, I noticed, with blue and yellow flowers, the colours of Ukraine. Blue for the sky, yellow for our golden wheat fields. But I also see that garland as a symbol of solidarity between the people of Kirklees and our Ukrainian nation. Let us now hope and pray that there's a quick and speedy resolution, a peaceful resolution to this conflict, and there's no further bloodshed. I'd now like to just basically and briefly express our gratitude to the officers of Kirklees, to the people of Kirklees, for the huge outpouring that we've witnessed as a community with regard to the Ukrainian crisis. I'd also like to point out some of our fears and anxieties, our hopes and our aspirations. The solidarity that we've witnessed is unbelievable, but it hasn't started last week or 2 weeks ago. It's been going on for 70 years. When our parents arrived in Huddersfield, Dewsbury, Batley in 1948, they were destitute, they were penniless, they couldn't speak the language, they had no employment. Your towns opened their doors, you provided work in textiles, in engineering, and you allowed us to build a community that could aspire to independence for Ukraine, but at the same time, it allowed us to preserve our traditions, our culture, our roots, and our language. In the 50s, 60s, and 70s, we protested, we had marches, demonstrations across Huddersfield, most culminating on the steps of the town hall. You supported us without fail. In 1991, when my parents and my community cried with tears of joy when Ukrainian independence was declared, the council rejoiced with us. In 2010, Kirklees Metropolitan Council became the 4th fastest council to recognise the Holodomor of 1932-3 as genocide. We will be eternally grateful to Kirklees for that. But we're now faced with an even greater threat, a humanitarian crisis of epic proportions. And we have seen, just in the last 2 weeks, what the people of Kirklees can offer. Last week, we sent 700 boxes of donations of clothes, medical supplies, toiletries, food from our club in Edgerton to Poland and Ukraine, all given freely by the people of Kirklees. Thousands and thousands of pounds are pouring into the coffers, which are going to the biggest fund, the Help Ukraine Emergency Appeal, and with the aid of the Red Cross, that money is being distributed to where it's needed. People are walking up our drive and putting envelopes into our letterbox with hundreds of pounds without even telling us who they are. That's what Kirklees is doing for our people. Forgive me if I'm getting a little emotional. We will continue with our donations, and yesterday Kirklees were kind enough to grant us some storage space in one of your units. We thank you for that. I know for a fact that Kirklees have initiated the possibility of a multi-faith vigil, we thank you for that. That will bring all the faiths together and we will be even more connected. There are hopes that we can have a benefit concert in this very town hall sometime in May. Let's hope that goes ahead. We know that your councillors and officers are working behind the scenes frantically because the biggest challenge will be the influx of refugees and displaced persons. We as a community will be on board. We will do everything in our power to support the work that your executive are doing. I'd now like to basically tell you a little bit about the things that are causing us some fears and anxieties. As you know, many people now are dying. Some of those people are relatives of people from Huddersfield. People have already asked me today on entry to the town hall, how have my wife and me been affected? In a nutshell, we have one second cousin who's a medic who was on the Eastern Front as we speak, tending to the wounded soldiers. I have two 18-year-old great nephews who've been called up as reservists. They're probably going to defend Kiev. The women of the village of where our parents are from are frantically knitting throughout the night. They are making camouflage netting, clothing for the soldiers. They're bottling food to send to the front. We've got older men who can't go and fight. What have they done? They've barricaded the village and they're patrolling the perimeters with whatever they can find. The heroism, the stoicism, the bravery of our people and our president is there for everyone to see, but it's also the support that we are getting as a nation from people like yourselves that is giving us hope. We dread not only the casualties, the injuries, the displacements, we also are afraid that we may lose our independence forever, that my daughter may have to start that fight again. I remember protesting, and she may have to go back to that our institutions will be Russified, that our language will be lost, our culture will be lost. But we've still got an amazing hope. There are these stories of courage that are keeping us alive. The old lady who walked up to a Russian soldier with sunflower seeds and said, "These seeds are going to bloom on the rubble that you've left behind." Or the 80-year-old man with his suitcase, with his sandwiches, going to the recruitment station to say, "I've come to defend the city of Kiev." Or the link of men and women who were walking along the streets to stop the tanks. Or even the lady who threw a jar of pickles and brought down a drone. There are some amazing stories. You've all seen the pictures of the young girls singing the Disney songs that are melting our hearts. So all I can say is I beseech you, I implore you to continue giving us your support. We will work alongside you. Thank you for everything that you are doing for us. And I'd like to say that I have one dream left, and the dream is that one of our beautiful towns or cities that has been razed to the ground will rise from the ashes like the proverbial phoenix. And it will be rebuilt stronger than before, and it will be twinned with the town of Huddersfield. And that link, that solidarity that we have forged will be set in stone for eternity. Thank you for listening to me. Slava Ukraini.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you for your heartfelt deputation. I've been lucky enough to be invited to visit the Ukrainian community in times of peace, and you always made me very welcome, and I'm sure that the other mayors and the other councillors that have visited would say the same. My message is quite simple. I'm sure this council will do all it can to help the Ukrainian people. Thank you for coming tonight. Are there any petitions? Public petitions? No. Public petitions from the public, not councillors. I don't believe there are. So we'll now go on to debate motion item 22. Motion submitted in accordance with the council procedure rule 14 as to Ukraine. Councillor Pandor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Michael, for that heartfelt deputation. And it's only right that I say a few words around that, Michael. Firstly, the impact that your community has had, we feel that pain because you are part and parcel of the fabric of our community in Kirklees. And it's really humbling to see the work that your community has been doing. And it's really great to see that the way Kirklees has responded in terms of how we are coming together as humanity. And the Ukrainian community in Kirklees is going through probably one of the worst times we will see in recent times and recent history. And it's hard to imagine the heart-wrenching thoughts and feelings that you and your friends, families, allies see on a daily basis on the news. And talking daily with your friends and family in Ukraine. And it's really, really worrying that we see this in mainland Europe. And we just pray and hope that the peace you talk about happens quicker than we hope. The motion that we have in front of us today resonates a lot of the things that Michael has said. And I'm really grateful for all the leaders in this chamber who have unanimously agreed to bring this motion forward. And I'm sure that we all share the solidarity with the people of Ukraine. This motion hasn't got any controversy in terms of our local council. What is happening is illegal, unjustified, and criminal invasion of a sovereign nation of Ukraine. And nobody would dispute that. I urge everybody who wants to support Ukraine to continue to donate to the Disaster Emergency Committee appeal and through the Ukrainian Association, and already is getting millions of pounds that are going to be used for the good cause. In the motion it says Kirklees is a place that always steps up and welcomes refugees who are fleeing violence and persecution. And we will always be open to that in terms of anybody who actually wants to come here. The government has recently announced measures that are taken, and just earlier today I was in a Zoom call with Richard Hartington. He's an ex-MP who's been called back in, who's got some expert knowledge in terms of what he was doing with the government around the Syrian resettlement programme and the Afghan resettlement programme. And I'm really, really hopeful what I heard today, that they're going to step up the acts and the detailed we're waiting for in terms of how, I think it was 140,000 British families that have come forward to actually get people to come over from Ukraine. And they're going to also start to find ways to actually make sure that the visas and all the other checks and balances that they need to give to the people that are fleeing Ukraine is speeded up, and that's the right thing to do. We will continue to work with the Ukrainian Association locally and nationally, and continue to engage with the voluntary sector and anybody who flees violence. Like I said, we are always open. The motion won't stop Putin's war of terror and the machinery that is is being enacted against a sovereign nation. But the solidarity with ordinary people like us will continue. Our communities across the world, if they all do the bits that we're doing, will be a powerful weapon to actually bring Putin to account. This motion is a small step towards that, and I hope we can all support this motion. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Pandor. Is that seconded? Councillor Hall.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I'm grateful to Michael for sharing with us tonight the thoughts of the Ukrainian community. And what a marvellous exhortation that was. By gum, I wish he was a councillor, because he'd get stuff done with that chap. It's a great privilege to second this motion, Mr. Mayor. And I'm sure we all look on and see the awful misery that's been inflicted on so many ordinary people in the Ukraine. Hospitals, homes, infrastructure destroyed, families separated and loved ones lost. Now, I say ordinary people, but actually they are an extraordinary people, because we marvel at the extraordinary courage of the Ukrainian people and their determination not to be conquered, and the selfless example which has been shown by their president. As we witness what's going on, I'm sure a lot of you will agree with me that we feel almost helplessness at what we see. And the sad fact is that no one will be untouched by what is a terrible act of war. It's going to change the world. We have a change in the world order, mass migration across the continent not seen since World War II, knock-on effects on prices and economies worldwide, great pressure on the energy supply. I'm afraid President Putin has opened a terrible, terrible Pandora's box, and unfortunately the world will not quickly heal. As with all motions, Mr. Mayor, we must focus on the response by the Council, and unfortunately this is the latest in a series of huge tasks facing the Council that we've had to face up to. And just like COVID, there's going to be ramifications across the whole of the directorates for which we are responsible. Housing refugees, the education of refugee children, support for families, translation services, physical and mental health support, and of course the wider issues which face all our communities, rising prices, energy costs and all this, which are going to just be exacerbated by the situation in Eastern Europe, just to name but a few. It's going to involve considerable preparation and ongoing effort for many, many months. So what can we do, Mr. Mayor, as individuals? Well, we can't all be freedom fighters, we can't all be aid workers. We donate to the charities, but many of us would like to do more. And so I'm hoping, and I know that the Council will, draw on its various experiences during the pandemic to step forward in coordinating local volunteer efforts, welcoming and supporting displaced Ukrainian families. And with the resolution of this Council and the efforts of our officers and the support and the generosity of our residents, so much can be done to help. And I'm sure every member here, Mr. Mayor, will pledge themselves to that end. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Hall. Are there any comments on the motion? Councillor Lawson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to Michael and Anna from Huddersfield AUGB for coming to speak to us today. We can only guess how busy and anxious you and your community have been, and that with no let-up in sight. The motion in front of us rightly condemns the illegal invasion of Ukraine and states the support and unity we offer to our own Ukrainian community and to those who will join us in the coming weeks and months. This chamber also confirms its gratitude to the people of Kirklees for their generous responses and to the appeals for aid over the last 21 days. We know there will be more of that to come. What is not in the motion, but should be noted by us, is our admiration. We have seen the world media reporting on fortitude and resilience of the people of Ukraine and the remarkable leadership shown by President Zelensky. We have seen Eastern European leaders band together to travel to Kyiv at danger to themselves to show their support over and above the unstinting welcome of refugees. There is admiration too for the local Ukrainian community and the resourcefulness and determination that they themselves have displayed. There has been criticism of government, of course, and debate nationally, but that is only right when there are things that need fixing quickly. But that is not our job in this chamber. If we have a role to play nationally, it is to report back to our parliamentarians to let them know what is needed, what is working, and what shortfalls there might be. Council's job now, our job, is to prepare properly for the arrival of refugees and anticipate the needs of people who will be living with us, our new neighbours. The obvious priorities of housing, education, health, and work are easy to anticipate. The secondary needs like counselling, networking, safeguarding, and all the things that go to rebuilding a life take more thought and more clarity about what support will be in place. Government currently is offering just around £10,000 to each refugee that is settled with a local authority as a payment to that authority, which sounds like a lot, but when we consider education and the pupil premium, for example, adds up to around £6,000 over a child's school lifetime, we may see that there may be an amount of finessing to do with these measures, but that's up to us to shape that and to lobby for it, to all of us. What I would ask of the administration is to keep all members informed and to keep the information flowing both ways in the hope that we can maximise those opportunities to help. The Liberal Democrat group have previously offered their help directly to AUGB Huddersfield in anything that they can practically do to assist, and we renew that offer today. We are in full support of the motion. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Lawson. Councillor Marchington.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Michael, for your presentation this evening. I'm sure we're all going to support the motion, and I'm sure all of our thoughts and prayers are with the people of the Ukraine and the tremendous suffering that they are experiencing at this moment in time. I'm not coining a new phrase, but I think this needs to be a turning point in world history. It is not easy to stand up to totalitarian regimes or to the powerful. And over the years, for the sake of diplomacy and convenience, all of us have perhaps turned a blind eye to some of what has been going on. Our enemy's enemy might often have been our friend, no matter what they do. What this has brought home to all of us, and again, this is the purse of Kirklees, that none of us are going to be exempt from the impact of the illegal invasion of the Ukraine. There's a massive emotional impact on seeing our brothers and sisters, fellow Europeans, having their lives and their lands taken from them. But obviously there will be an impact from each one of us, and all of us will have sacrifices to make as fuel prices raise, food prices go up. We already know there's a crisis, but this will be even more exacerbated. And the local authority has an obligation to support the Ukrainian community and those who are offering help to refugees from elsewhere, but also to help those of our own community, those in the most difficult situations who are going to feel the impacts far more than others. But Kirklees is part of a global world. We've got a debate, a policy coming forward about equality and about inclusion and diversity. So what the Ukraine can say for us, and this is where it is a turning point and provide hope for all of us, that we have brothers and sisters, not just in Europe, but throughout the world. And thank you, Mr. Mayor, for your thoughts about everybody who, in this moment and this day, are suffering from conflict or war or oppression, wherever they might be, whether that's in Europe, Asia, Africa, the Americas, or Oceania. And we need to stop turning a blind eye to dictators and the powerful everywhere and stand along the side of the weak and the oppressed, however difficult that might be. So let's not just talk tonight, and I'm sure we'll do, but let's act as well. Let's lead our communities and understand the sacrifices we are all going to have to make, not just for the freedom of the Ukraine. And I think where the Ukrainian people, both in the UK and abroad, are leading us, they are standing up for us to totalitarianism and oppression. And I hope and pray that they will succeed through their own efforts with our support, and that will be to the benefit of not just us, which is a selfish thing to say, but to our brothers and sisters throughout the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Marchington. Councillor Bamford.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Michael, for the very passionate speech. Everyone will have seen the terrible footage on the news, seeing homes being destroyed, families fleeing for their lives. It's horrifying. People carrying injured babies and pregnant women being rescued from a bomb maternity hospital are scenes I'll never forget. I never thought I would see war in Europe in my lifetime. I have friends with Ukrainian roots and also family in Ukraine. I've enjoyed several nights with them celebrating New Year in the Halifax Ukrainian Club. A good friend of mine, Ukrainian friend, has a son, Mcbride, who is currently volunteering in Romania helping refugees. This makes the conflict seem a lot nearer to home. After seeing the queues of distressed refugees leaving their whole lives behind them to enter another country and an uncertain future, I wanted to help in some way. Myself and a couple of like-minded friends, Andrew and Che, have decided to help by delivering aid to the Polish border. We have, with the generous help of residents and businesses in the Denberdale ward and wider Kirklees, had enough items donated to fill 2 loaned vans, enough fund for ferries and fuel to allow us to drive these to the border next week. We've got a GoFundMe page that was set at £2,500. It's now at £3,500 and rising. Anything left over will go to the appeal fund. It's many thanks to everyone that supported us on in this endeavour. But of course, what we all want to see is Russia withdraw from Ukraine and allow friends and family to be reunited again, return to their country and start to rebuild their lives. Let's all pray this is very soon. I hope you'll all support the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bamford. Councillor Pandor, right to reply.
Mr. Mayor, thank you, Michael, once again for your deputation. And thank you to all the group leaders and their parties for their support. And thank you to the Kirklees community who has actually been remarkable in the solidarity and the support they've shown. So, Mr. Mayor, can we go for the vote now? Thank you.
We'll vote now with a show of hands. All those in favour? That's carried. Thank you. We now go back to item 6, public question time. Can I invite Heather Peacock to come forward, please? Can you ask your question, please?
What is happening about the illegal mass tipping site at GS Bamford in Millsbridge?
Councillor Mather to respond.
Thank you, Heather, for your question. As you are aware, the council knows about the waste which has been dumped on the site on Cornvale Road. The Environment Agency are responsible for enforcement on this site. However, our officers are working with the agency and West Yorkshire Fire and Rescue over concerns regarding this waste. We are working with the Environment Agency to agree the clearing of waste as soon as possible. Council officers are also monitoring the site for odours, further dumping and potential fire risks. I think we've actually managed to do enough to make sure that further dumping doesn't occur. The site is now secured and unlikely to be accessed again by the criminals or culprits who do this need to be prosecuted. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Can I invite David Heathcote to come forward, please, to ask this question?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can I just add a tribute to you for your service as Mayor and long service as Councillor, and to all those who are standing down, to Peter Mcbride, Councillor Mcbride and Councillor Uppal in particular. My question is around glass recycling. My neighbours in the Lindley ward, and I welcome the Council's plans to reintroduce curbside glass collection, starting with a trial later this year. Would the Council bring forward the trial of glass collection at curbside from November to Q3 this year? And could Lindley be included in the trial? And would the Council bring forward the full glass collection at curbside from the current plans of 2024 to Q2 in 2023?
Councillor Simpson to reply.
Thank you very much, David, for your question and for waiting so patiently until we got to your public question. We absolutely share your enthusiasm and are really looking forward to delivering on our waste strategy and reintroducing curbside glass collections in Kirklees. Our timescales, as they were outlined in our waste strategy, which received cross-party support, have had a lot of thought put into them to ensure that they align with the government's legislation and requirements, and that we've taken the right level of research and planning, and that with this trial within our community and with the trial in our communities, to make sure that we'll be able to be sure that the significant investment is done in the right way. We also need to consider the practical side, such as procuring the vehicles required and the containers which residents will be using, which unfortunately isn't a quick process, but we hope to be able to release some further information on the glass collection trial in the summer.
Do you have a supplementary?
I do, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just on recycling in general, if I may, the Council promised to increase recycling rates from the current low level of 26% in your graph to the national average of 43% by this time. And also on the graph, it predicts that with your waste strategy, that figure would be 47% of recycling rates by the end of this council year. And I know this has been raised with you before, that if you're going to have a strategy like this with a plan, you need to show the milestones and the tactical steps that you are going to take to get to those rates. So I'd love to see more about those. But the waste strategy also promises to review progress on a quarterly basis and to publish those figures. So I'm sure the recycling rates are at the forefront of your mind. So could you provide the last quarter's recycling figure? And would you also undertake to, as you promised in the strategy, to publish those figures on the website so that we as residents can see how the council is doing?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for your follow-up question, Mr. Heathcote. I'm sure you'll be aware that we've already taken a number of steps. We've got our new schools recycling service. We're soon to have a new bulky waste collection service that we're hoping to roll out. We've got our new plastics that are going into our green bins. That's an early delivery on what's in the waste strategy. So we're not just delivering to those timescales. Where we can bring them forward, we are doing it, and we have done there. So I'm really looking forward to our residents being able to put plastic pots, tubs and trays into their green bins from the 31st of March onwards, and your support, colleagues, and David, in relaying that to the residents in your communities to make sure that we drive up those recycling rates as the aspiration that we share does happen. I'm sure that we will be, obviously I don't have the data on me right now, obviously with the nature of the supplementary I wasn't aware that you're going to ask for it, so I couldn't prepare to bring it. However, I'm absolutely certain that any commitments we've made around sharing that data we will be sure to undertake. So I'll take that away with me, and Councillor Mather, who I share some responsibility with on this, has heard that as well, so we'll be certain to take that away. Okay. But yeah, please do, colleagues, share the good news about the green bins with your residents.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Is Maria Ackroyd still here? No, we don't think our third member of the public is still here, so I will move on to item 7, petitions from members of the council. Councillor Lyons.
Mr Mayor, I've a petition here from a Mrs Audrey Bamforth, which also includes 2 letters from our local MP, Jason McCartney. I'd like to submit it. Thank you very much.
Councillor McGuinn.
Mr Mayor, this petition is signed by those who would like Castle Hill to be protected from overdevelopment by unnecessary building. Anyone signing this petition agreed that change should be secure the integrity of this national monument.
Thank you, Councillor McGuinn. Councillor Burke.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to present this petition on behalf of residents of the Linley Ward regarding, funnily enough, curbside glass collections, which I'm glad to see that the Conservative candidate is joining the Lib Dem campaign to get curbside collection. So, as we know, curbside collections were dropped a number of years ago, and since then it has impacted on a number of residents, especially those residents...
Councillor Burke. All you've got to do is present the petition. I don't want a speech. I don't want a speech.
If I may indulge you just for one moment.
Cut you off.
I know you will.
Yes. So just present the petition.
Okay, thank you. It's because of a lot of people don't have cars to go to bottle banks. It's impacted on the elderly, those with mobility difficulties. So I think it's very important. I've heard the answer that was given previously, and I hope this will be considered on behalf of the residents of the Linley Ward. And I thank all those joining the Lib Dem campaign for glass recycling and curbside collection.
Thank you. In accordance with the Council Procedure Rule 9(3), I direct that the subject matter of the petitions to be referred to the appropriate service director for investigation. Item 8, West Yorkshire Combined Authority minutes. To receive for information the minutes of West Yorkshire Combined Authority. The minutes are here for noting. Are there any comments or questions regarding the minutes? Councillor Munro.
I'd just like to refer you to point 53, bus service improvement plans in those minutes. I note the West Yorkshire Mayor has pledged to improve the bus service by creating a safe, accessible and fully inclusive bus system vital for decarbonisation and sustainable travel. My question is, in the light of a downturn in the economy, hikes in energy prices and eye-watering increases in fuel prices, I wonder if Will Wyker increase bus services to make them a viable option for commuters across our area and subsidise bus fares to keep them low? These measures would also encourage people to switch to public transport and have the potential for a lasting change in future commuting. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Munro. Councillor Idale.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's item 49 on the West Yorkshire Climate and Environmental Plan, and I would like to make some sort of reply to Councillor Simpson's, in turn reply to the Huddersfield Environmental Group deputation. In that he stated that we've now reached 53% when we only need it to reach 40%. But what he doesn't say is that this includes 10% for the greening of electricity, which Kirklees have done nothing at all about. It's been presented to them. But it does include every house that's been sold since 2005, 2006. And of course, that hasn't stopped the pollution, it's just moved it out of our figures. It also, other schools, which have now gone, are not using the original Kirklees plan, but they've gone to academies. And any building that the asset transfer has been passed over to some new people, not by Kirklees. Again, on both those occasions, it hasn't stopped the greenhouse gases. It's just moved them out of our in fact, the analogy I would like to use, it's like putting all your smelly waste in a neighbour's bin and hoping the stink stops at the house boundary. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ardell. Councillor David Hall.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also just wanted to raise a point under minute 53, which is on page 26 and 27. It refers to the condition of buses, and it particularly mentions school buses, which were cited as often old and had poor emissions. I'm not a frequent user of public transport, but I have got the bus in today, as it happens. And I was quite shocked. I suppose it's to be expected that the usage of buses did dip substantially during COVID. What I hadn't realised is just how poorly the bounce back has been, because there was next to nobody on the bus which I got in from Mcbride at rush hour. And it did strike me that the mayor or the mayor's office is going to have a really hard time trying to persuade people to get on the buses. And the other thing to say about, we see a lot of quite large and quite smelly buses, which I suspect are diesel, riding around with next to nobody on them. And I wondered what steps Wicker or the Transport Authority or whoever can take effect to these things will be putting in place to try and persuade the bus companies to run smaller and greener buses. That was the first point I wanted to make. The second one is on page 34, and this is to do with the Northern Powerhouse Rail. And as members will know, the government decided that they wouldn't build the new track and upgrade the track through Bradford. What instead they would invest in the existing line which goes through Huddersfield, Dewsbury and Batley. What I find disappointing on these minutes is the first bullet point on page 34, which said that the representative for Kirklees noted that although aspects of the IRP had been received more positively in their district, In other words, Kirklees welcomes the fact that we will be investing in the Huddersfield line. They acknowledge the disappointment felt across the region and supported efforts by the combined authority in having the business case re-examined. I'm afraid I violently disagree with that, Mr. Mayor. Whoever's batting for us on this case has just thrown the match. We should not be saying to the government, please don't invest in the Dewsbury-Batley-Huddersfield line, go through Bradford instead. We should actually be pleased that we are going to get the Dewsbury-Batley-Huddersfield line improved. And in fact, we should be pushing now for some of the spin-off benefits that might mean for our communities, both in North Kirklees and in Huddersfield, and further down up into the Calder Valley. So perhaps the leader or someone else might give us an explanation as to why we are supporting this effort by the Combined Authority in having that business case re-examined. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Hall. Just to remind councillors that we have to make a decision on items 9 and 10 tonight. I'm quite happy for you to speak all night because I've got a lift home. So, but that's just to remind you, if you want to keep speaking on this one, somewhere along the line I'll have to draw a line under this. Councillor Smage is next. I have you down, Councillor Bolt, don't worry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question and points are on item 60, pages 30 and 31 of the papers that we have before us today. And it is about buses, yes. I noticed in the discussion on the enhanced partnership that there was an initiative in developing links with hospitals. Reconfiguration of hospitals for Kirklees have meant that people have to get more than one bus for a lot of appointments to hospitals. I mean, personally, we had an appointment at 8 o'clock in the morning at Pinderfields that said you can't drive after this appointment. Now, if the person going hadn't have had somebody who could have given them a lift, then how on earth would they have got to Pinderfields Hospital on public transport for 8 o'clock in the morning? So it is imperative, I think, that when the developing links with hospitals are concerned, that the geography of hospitals and the geography of the areas that the hospitals cover are taken into account with those bus services. But also, as well as hospitals, it's health centres. We have part of our ward that actually finds it very difficult to get a bus to a health centre that is only 10 minutes down the road in a car. I also would like to understand what discussions the Combined Authority are having with bus operators within this partnership. I really appreciate that they've had a very difficult time during COVID and that it is very difficult still for them. But councillors like ourselves in our ward, we have been discussing with the Combined Authority how we can get a better bus service for different places in the ward. And then suddenly comes along one of the bus operators and changes a lot of services that affect a lot of people. And I'm wondering what discussions are happening with operators to, instead of reducing services and so make it even more difficult for people to go back to public transport when they feel ready, to actually work with councillors, etc., to actually grow a service in an area. And also, not to just ask for, when there's a planning application, not to just ask for a new bus stop where there's hardly a bus goes past it, but actually to look at the services as well as the stops. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Smage. Councillor Bolt.
Looking at the minutes, there's quite a lot here of import to Kirklees, and it'd be useful, I suppose, if Cabinet gave updates, so we're not waiting, in this case, from October. If we look at the situation on page 19, it came in the COVID report, and Councillor Pandor was attending, and the Chair noted that there'd been a round table with Sir Roger Marsh about the impact on the HGV situation. Now, there's no mention of any contribution there. I've looked back, Mr Mayor, 2 years ago, Councillor Pandor promised that officers would investigate my concerns about the abysmal and despicable situation in Dewsbury for HGV parking. We hear further on in the report about gender-neutral transport. So what is the leader doing to ensure equality and facilities in HGV parking that the council runs and charges people for? Because I would encourage colleagues to look at the situation in Dewsbury, where I believe it's £10 a night to park on a piece of tarmac. There's not even a portaloo. Now, I say this is over 2 years since the leader told me he'd raise it. I've raised it at Cabinet since. And, Mr Mayor, we have businesses in Kirklees who I'm sure will be delighted to hire out portaloos to improve the facilities and even put shower facilities there. On page 40, on item 49, West Yorkshire Climate and Environment Plan. This is like a lot of climate plans where, as we have now, the Mayor will approve something and it then behoves the constituent authorities to contribute. We've had that with the climate neutral plan and the carbon reduction. So how is West Yorkshire going to achieve this when a report recently published said that when the plans were assessed, and admittedly the report which has only just come out did say it was 20th of September 21, Kirklees did not have an action plan. Further, looking at scores for Kirklees for climate emergency, governance, development and funding, none out of 21. Mitigation and adaptation, none out of 18. Commitment and integration, none out of 7. Communication engagement, none out of 9. There's a theme, Mr Mayor, in Kirklees' climate emergency. We know we're heading for zero emissions, but Mr Mayor, it looks like they've got zero involvement in it as well, looking at this report. Looking at other aspects that the combined authority are contributing, on page 27, again, colleagues have referred to bus service, BSIP, Bus Service Improvement Plan. Members raised the following questions and comments about park and ride schemes. Now, I know, Councillor Mcbride, this was something that we discussed on those long journeys many years ago when Councillor Mcbride used to wax lyrical about the ideal opportunities that there would be at Cooper Bridge for a park and ride system for Kirklees. None out of 9. Again, we've heard about representation. Item 62, Mr Mayor, on page 34, members raised following concerns, and Councillor Hall has reflected on the integrated rail plan. Members noted the vital importance of integration across the north as a whole, beyond West Yorkshire, and only key cities such as Manchester and Leeds in order to support levelling up. Where is the Kirklees representation for the improved north-south link, the Penistone line? It's not in Murfield, but it is worthy of recognition, Mr Mayor. We need to improve that north-south connectivity with the powerhouse that is South Yorkshire, to improve, through levelling up, through Kirklees' involvement, services so that people can get to Sheffield and then on to Birmingham and other places without having to go through the rigours of going to Leeds. So let's see the scores improve. Let's see Kirklees show leadership, and let's see some action so that we're not playing fourth fiddle in a 5-fiddle orchestra here. That when you see the funding that comes through, as we have through the Mayor approves funding for bus operators, look at where those buses are going. We had a report, the Transport Committee unfortunately doesn't get to make the decisions, That's done by the combined authority on which the leader sits. Buses going to Leeds. New buses going to Bradford. New buses going to Wakefield. We didn't see the report saying there's any new buses for Kirklees. These are the low-emission buses. So how are we going to achieve the climate and environment plan targets when we're not being fully represented at a West Yorkshire level? Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I am actually going to draw the line under this one now, because we're not going to get to those other two if we're not careful. So I'm going to ask Councillor Pandor to reply. Sorry to the other three councillors.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There was quite a few things that came out from there, but I'll try and respond to each one as I've noted them here. Firstly, in terms of the bus service improvement plan, Councillor Munro mentioned, and buses were a common theme that came out from quite a few members. But do you know how many buses we have that are fully electric in West Yorkshire? Well, I'll tell you the answer to that. Yeah, we are being shortchanged by government in terms of the investment that we are trying to put in this council, and to be honest with you, it's completely appalling, because if the money is not there, the investment isn't there. We're just trying to get par and level up with the south. We all know the south has actually got a lot more investment going in per capita than up north. If you look at the recent levelling up funding that was allocated, Devon got more money than the whole of the northwest. Now, Devon doesn't have the same kind of deprivation, the same kind of needs than the northwest. And I'll touch onto the levelling up agenda later on. But the bottom line is that we are trying to make sure that we actually competitively put bids in, but time in, time out, if we're getting pushed back, then we need to actually go and put pressure on national government. And I'm happy to do that with any member in this chamber. In terms of the Northern Power Rail, well, when Boris Johnson came here in 2019, before, what was it, general election, where he actually promised that he will level up the north. He came to Rotherham at the Magna, and he actually stood up and promised people of the north that he will make sure that he actually levels it up. The first thing he did when he had the chance was to actually cut Northern Power Rail. He promised that he'll do that. He cut the eastern leg, which goes from London, that would have connected right the way up to Newcastle and beyond. That was something he promised. Now, I think what's happening here is he's realising, the Treasury is realising very, very quickly, that all the money he promised, was it £350 million per week for hospitals? Well, we don't want £350 million for hospitals to actually put that money in the buses, but some of that money could have gone to actually provide a service to Pinderfields, to Halifax General Infirmary and Huddersfield Royal Infirmary in terms of the buses. But what happened? That money has suddenly disappeared, and it's gone to the UK Shared Prosperity Fund, and the recent levelling up money that has come out, the government, the criteria they use wasn't poverty, wasn't deprivation, wasn't needs, wasn't about people on minimum wage, wasn't people who are actually affording to either heat or eat, and that's what it boils down to. It came down to, guess what? Journey times. And lo and behold, people who live in the North Yorkshire, in the sunny county of Richmondshire, who actually commute to Leeds and back. Who's Richmondshire? Oh, Rishi Sunak, the Chancellor, one of the richest person walking on this earth, never mind Britain. Yeah? And the money was actually funneled through to Richmondshire. Councillor Ball, you mentioned the HGV parking. I told you, your government made the announcement so that A, it's not a responsibility for government or public services. You then checked out with your friends in Parliament to say, Councillor Pandor has just actually said that Prime Minister Boris Johnson said it's not responsibility for local authorities or government to actually provide parking lots. You checked it out and you said Grant Shapps is going to put the money in. I'm still waiting for that money. So if you can prepare where that money is, I know there's a magic tree somewhere, but I can't find it. If you can find it, please talk to me. I'm going to put a bid in. In terms of levelling up, let's not be under any illusion. This government isn't going to level up. The only levelling up they're going to be doing is to actually funnel the money to the Torres Shires and where deprivation really matters, right? Yeah, we're not going to see a penny. Maybe he might put a bit of money in Dewsbury. Maybe he might put a bit of money in Corn Valley.
30 seconds.
We put a really good bid in Denby Dale, and I'm still waiting for a positive outcome. And I was hoping that we'd have actually got something, but what did we get? Nothing. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Pandor. Now we go on to, as I'll remind you again, we've got to get through items 9 and 10, so I'm looking at 15 minutes for each. Jackie was really looking forward to be able to give you a presentation, but we've kindly decided that we'll just go straight to Councillor Pandor to move this, to save time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was hoping that we'd have had a proper debate on this, because this is proper business, proper policy, something that we can actually shape in terms of inclusion and diversity. This is something that is very dear to, I'm sure, all councillors' hearts. In the forward, Mr. Mayor, it says inclusion, and that word is easy to say, isn't it? But to deliver inclusion takes planning, commitment, persistent belief and dedication, something I'm sure we all have. And the challenges to this council, to me in my leadership role, and to the councillors in this chamber, is how do we get that fair society? How do we get a fair economy that actually works for everybody? How does everybody benefit, and how can everybody share the successes that we all aspire to? How can we get a society that's more healthier? How can we make sure that everyone, regardless of their background, their belief, their gender, or where they live, can actually get the best education they can actually develop the skills to the best of their ability, can actually access opportunities, and fairness and equality, however we want to term it, actually means something to everybody. The councillor as an employer should be something that we aspire to in terms of how we actually employ people on all rungs of the hierarchy in terms of making sure we represent everybody. Let me tell you my own story. I started working in this council as a positive action trainee. Now, PAT trainees, I'm sure you know, but my apologies if I'm telling you something that you know. PAT trainee was a scheme that was developed back in the 80s through Labour administration, I think, in terms of making sure that we had representation in the council to make sure that they represent the communities they serve. This was staff. I applied as a trainee accountant, and I was given that opportunity. And that's what I want to make sure that every single person, regardless of who they are, has that same opportunity. And that is the sort of aspiration I want everybody to have in this council chamber. The diversity strategy will actually map out for the next 2 years in terms of how we want to build on progress, in terms of how we want to go further. And a few achievements I'll just go through, Mr. Mayor, if I may. We've anonymised recruitment, work experience for care leavers, young people, and people who actually come from working class white backgrounds to give them the opportunities that we all talk about. We've developed leadership programs for BME communities, staff from ethnic minority backgrounds. We've developed specialist accommodation for older disabled residents to make sure that they live independently and longer. Developed learning skills strategy for young people from BME communities, from working class background, and from communities who are economically inactive. IROCO project, really proud of that, because on the back of Black Lives Matter, we actually said we need to do more work with the black community. And we've already been recognised internationally in terms of the work that we have been doing. We've got award-winning social prescribing support residents, and these are residents who might have been excluded. I was really proud that we actually flew the British flag in June. The first ever South Asian History Month, not just a Black History Month, and we also celebrated Pride for the LGBT community, and we need to go further on that agenda. Far too often, I've seen, especially in the recent years, is politicians using rhetoric and dividing communities. Now, that might be politics, and you might say, well, it's politics, but to me, that's dividing communities and putting communities one against another. True leadership means binding people together. True leadership means taking them different decisions and to sometimes do stuff that's actually difficult and make a proper decision that actually has a proper impact on people. So, Mr. Mayor, I could go on, but one of the things I want to encourage is for a proper debate to be had. We might not have time today, but this agenda is so important that we will all have our opinions, we'll all have a stake in terms of what we want to do. But until we start to listen to one another, until we respect one another, until I understand where you're coming from, until you understand where I'm coming from, and everybody else, we will not address this agenda. This week, we had a personnel committee, and we had a young lad called Ash who came. And there were myself there, John Taylor, Nahid, Donald Firth, and I think it was Susie Lee Richards. And the way that guy spoke and the way he actually explained his experiences as a disabled person with learning difficulties, he was an inspiration. And that is what we want to do. We want to bring on people with learning disabilities who can play a part in serving their communities in whatever way they can. And one of the things that we said in that meeting was we might have different views, we might have different opinions, we might have different beliefs, we might have different backgrounds, but until we as councillors start to talk about the real issues, and sometimes I might say something that you might find difficult, you might say something that I find difficult, but until we can resolve them and then find the commonality that binds us, we're not going to address this agenda. And I'm hoping that we can find the commonalities that bind us, because there is so much more in common that we can actually drive forward. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Pandor. So we've only really got time for 2 speakers on this, unless people are desperate, and we can go over 9 o'clock eventually. Councillor Taylor. Oh, sorry, seconded. I'm losing it. Seconded, Councillor Pattison.
Thank you, Mayor. I will be very brief in seconding this, and I'm very happy to do so. Like Councillor Pandor, back in the 80s, I was working for the council, and I introduced the positive action training scheme that he referred to and ethnic monitoring into this council for the first time. We've come an awful long way since then, and I'm very proud of the steps that we have taken as a council in respect of diversity and representation of our staff, in the accessibility of our services, and in the whole ethos and culture of the council. But we've still not reached the nirvana that where inclusion is at the heart of everything that we are and what we do. So in some ways, it's with some regret that we're not there yet, but I also welcome the fact that we have this strategy before us today, which will help us to take another step forward to full inclusion. And by ensuring that we put diversity and inclusion at the heart of our organisation, we will also help to ensure that this is also reflected in our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pattison. Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I echo some of what Shabir has said, and I found myself, they were stealing some of my words from the Personnel Committee as well about some of it. We do have different views. We do come from different viewpoints. I often find it's when we talk about outcomes that we all share the same outcomes. We may just have different ways of getting there. I share the outcomes around this in terms of making sure that everybody has an equal opportunity. I'm very, very, my personal values would support that. My worry with this type of work is it focuses too much on differences rather than similarities. And that's no criticism of the administration or the officers. That is down to the way that the Equalities Act is written, and it makes certain specifications, and you have to follow through with those specifications. I'm very much in the Joe Cox thinking of let's focus on what brings people together rather than what separates us. And sometimes reports like this focus too much on the separation because it's trying to produce that data and show you those differences. And actually, when you focus on differences, it pushes people apart. When you focus on similarities, you bring people together. We're all parents, we're all, well, I'm not actually, but most of the parents, we're all parts of families, we're all parts of communities. They're the things we should particularly focus on. Two little comments I just want to make. I want to thank Shabir in his foreword, because he actually mentions the word class, which is one of the things I feel is missing from the Equalities Act, because it does mean that we're not expected to look at socioeconomic groups in terms of making sure that everybody has an equal chance. And although he has spoken about white working class, it doesn't come through in the report in the same way. So that does worry me a little bit. The other thing I'm very grateful to see is there's reference, and I've lost, on page 92 or 7.2 about the Working Carers Support Network. That's something I've talked about in the past, and I think it's really, really important that we think about people, and increasingly members of staff will be carers and supporting family members. And I think that's something we need to think about how we support them through the challenges they may face during those roles as carers. I'll keep it short and keep it at that for today, but I think if we focus on outcomes and we focus on the things we share, rather than putting everybody into individual little boxes and focusing on the differences between them, I think we get a lot further as a community, as in a council. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Amanda Pinnock.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I felt this is something that I need to speak on because of the role that I played in some of the projects which have been outlined in the report, such as the Inclusion and Diversity Commission, although that isn't threaded through, which was a cross-party group, which had the task of looking at this important area, but also my involvement with the Iroko project, which I championed. And this project was nominated for the European Diversity Awards. I think Shabir alluded to the recognition that it's received internationally. And I understand last week it took second place for the British Diversity Awards for Best Community Project, which I think speaks volumes about the fantastic work that officers have done to collate that information and to show how successful the project has been so far. But of course, there's a long way to go. And that particular award ceremony, we had some important people, important celebrities there. I understand that Marcus Rashford was also nominated for some of the awards as well. Mr. Mayor, it's never been a more compelling time to look at inclusion and diversity in Kirklees. With so many of our residents facing issues such as COVID-19 recovery, the cost of living crisis, the increase in loneliness and mental health, health inequalities, the deficit in the care industry, and so much more. And of course, we've heard today from the gentleman who did the deputation on the Ukraine community and the importance of recognising their plight. This work is vital towards finding a workable, long-term, sustainable solution, both within the council and also externally of the council. We know the council doesn't have all the answers, so co-production, partnership working, and place-based working all have an important role to play in this. For example, the Iroko project, where the Black African and Caribbean community talked about their lived experiences around inequalities and how that created barriers and challenges for them. This then went on to lead on to creating a co-produced community-led solution on how to address such issues going forwards. Lessons were learned. It created a safe space for people to engage. We know traditionally the council have their usual consultation mechanism in which to obtain information, but this was different. This was an opportunity to encourage a response in a better way, and also be able to encourage more engagement from the community. Mr. Mayor, evidence shows that if people are not given the right tools in life, this could lead to long-lasting impact, putting pressure on services and organisations in the long run and costing more. So it makes sense to tackle inequality early and head on. Mr. Mayor, early intervention and prevention is key to unlocking the solution, in my opinion. If a child is not given the best start in life, then as an adult, they're more likely to suffer poverty, they're more likely to live in poor housing, they're more likely to have health problems, more likely to be prone to addiction, and generally have lower outcomes. This then becomes a cycle of deprivation because their children are more likely to experience the same challenges, future generations, and so on. So these issues need to be addressed now. And as I've said, Mr. Mayor, this report couldn't be any more timely. So I very much support this strategy and look forward to seeing how it shapes and develops over time. And more importantly, I want to see positive outcomes. Councillor Taylor talked about outcomes. He talked about the report looking at difference, but I think it's important that difference is also looked at to identify where there are problems and how those problems can be addressed. And sometimes things have to be broken down in a piecemeal fashion for that to be done. So I would say, Mr. Mayor, that it's important for things to be measured, to show the difference it can make in people's lives. And Mr. Mayor, nobody should be left behind. And that's the purpose of this strategy. And for that reason, I support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pinnock. Right to reply, Councillor Pandor.
Go for the vote, Mr. Mayor, or whatever you want to do. Is it a vote?
You don't you want to do it? No, right, that's fine. We'll go to the vote. Thank you. Right, we'll now go to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? Any abstentions? That's carried. Thank you. Right, item 10. Item 10 is the pay policy statement, which is referenced from the Personnel Committee, page 103, pay policy statement, Councillor Paul Davis.
The Localism Act requires us to produce an annual pay policy statement to ensure there's openness and accountability for the way we remunerate our officers. It is a standard requirement and a process for all local authorities. The Act sets out details of the posts that we must report on, and you'll find those in paragraphs A to E of the pay policy statement. The full details of those posts and related levels of remuneration are set out in Appendix A. We're also required to report on the pay multiple ratio between the highest paid officer and the median salary. Ours is 7.89 to 1, and this is broadly in line with our neighbours. Bradford is 8.8 to 1, Leeds 7.74 to 1, with Wakefield a little bit lower at 7.01 to 1. Should also be noted that this report was prepared before the 2021-22 pay award was recently agreed. So it will need to be updated in light of that before we actually publish it. And just for reference, if councillors are not aware, the pay award was 2.75% for the lowest SCP and 1.75% for all others. So in terms of next steps and timelines, we need to publish the pay policy statement on the Council's internet site to meet the requirements of the Localism Act. The Personnel Committee has discussed this report and noted it, and today, as a Council, we need to approve this annual pay policy statement attached to this report in accordance with the 2011 Localism Act. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Davis. Is that seconded, Councillor Pandor?
Seconded, Mr. Mayor, and reserve the right.
Are there any comments on this item? Don't rush. There are no comments. Would you like to have a right of reply? Councillor Davis? No? So we'll now go to the vote. All those in favour? Any against? That's carried. Thank you. Where are we now? Time-wise? 10 minutes. Have we got time? Have we got time to ask a few questions? I think we've got time to do some questions. This is my last meeting, we might as well carry on. So item 11, written questions to the leader, cabinet members, chairs of committees. We'll keep going until 9 o'clock arrives. First question. Councillor Richard Smith to the leader of the council, Councillor Pandor.
Councillor Pandor, can you explain what the administration's going to do about the Rugby Museum in Huddersfield?
Thank you, Councillor Smith, for your question. I will pass on to Councillor Peter Mcbride, who will give you a response. Peter?
Sorry, can you repeat the question? Can you repeat the question? I thought it was to Councillor Pandor.
I'm just asking what the council is going to do about the Rugby Museum, please. Thank you.
The council has already responded to that. We did, I think you're referring to the fact that we kind of put the museum into the building. We've addressed that issue. We did originally intend to do that. I looked over the building the other day and I can see the challenges that that building has. Also, to be viable, you've got to make a hotel of at least 100 bedrooms. And that means going up another floor. And I've seen what they're trying to do. The challenge it's going to be and the cost, which is going to be enormous. And when you look at the issue and the problems to be addressed, you can see that logically they would go for what was intended in the first place when the building was bought, to bring the building back into use, not as a museum, but as a hotel. If we could have combined the two, and that was genuinely our intent and a hope, we would have done so. If that's not possible, and there's a competition between those two objectives, there's no question where the priority has to lie. And I'm still convinced that's what we want, and that's what the people of Huddersfield want.
Supplementary.
It'd be nice to get an answer to the question. I never mentioned the George Hotel. I asked what was going to happen with regards to the Rugby Museum. But I'll try again. So I'm going to ask Councillor Pandor again. How are you going to rebuild the ruined reputation of this council following this debacle? Because no organisation will want to do business with an organisation that they do not trust to keep their promises and commitments. And that's directly to the council leader, please. Thank you.
I'll still answer it, nonetheless.
To the question, please.
Councillor Smith, we are talking with a number of developers, and the kind of remarks you are making is not helpful to actually make sure that we actually do get the business and the investors in. You know, if you want a serious conversation with me about this, let's have a proper conversation rather than trying to politically outmaneuver each other and talk the town down, because that's what all you are doing. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Question 2, Councillor Smith to the leader of the council, Councillor Pandor.
We'll try again, see if we can get a proper answer this time. What's your plan to ensure that village and town centres are supported to thrive?
Thank you, Councillor Smith, for your question. Councillor Eric Firth, who is the portfolio holder for this area, can you please come and answer? Thank you.
Councillor Smith, thank you for your question. as you're aware, Cabinet have already agreed a 10 million programme for small towns, or the 4 towns and smaller towns. We have spoken to councillors and the communities in the 4 designated towns. That's Holmfirth, Batley, Mcbride and Cleckheaton. Going forward, we hope to have a Cabinet report early this year, or later this year, should I say, so too early now, isn't it? To see what we're going to do about the smaller towns, smaller settlements. We'll obviously work with those communities and councillors that represent them.
Supplementary.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, meeting after meeting, we see residents come to this council to complain about issues that affect their towns and villages. You know, we regularly see people from Holmfirth, and they're not getting a satisfactory answer. You know, we could go right back to the bus gates debate from years ago. The common theme, really, is that this cabinet does not engage with the residents. It does not listen to the residents. It does things to the people. The question is, when will this change?
Oh, obviously, I disagree with you, Councillor Smith. We work very closely with all our communities, as do our local councillors. You've seen the plans for Holmfirth and the centre Holmfirth, which are really good. It's been mentioned earlier today, and hopefully that will come to fruition in the not too distant future. Thank you, Councillor Smith.
Question 3. Question by Councillor Smith to the Leader of the Council, Councillor Pandor.
Is there any chance I can take question 4 first? Do I have to take it in order? It's to the Leader, isn't it?
Take it in order.
Okay, so, Councillor Pandor, who would you like to replace you as Leader of this council?
No, it's all right. I'm happy with that if Mr. Mayor is.
Sorry, I said take question 3.
Okay. We'll come back to that one, Councillor Pandor. I'm sure you've got a lovely answer for me. Can you commit to giving taxpayers value for money when delivering services across Kirklees?
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Councillor Paul Davis, please can you come and answer this question?
I hope not.
Thanks, Councillor Smith, for your question. So, value for money is not just an aspiration for us as an administration and a council. It's business as usual. Government underfunding means we have to work even harder than other authorities to deliver high quality, high value services to our residents. Despite these challenges, I personally want to pay tribute to our staff who day in and day out do more for less. It's their dedication that means 99.7% of bins were collected on time last year. Quite remarkable with some of the things, as we all know, were going on at the time. 41 miles of our highways were resurfaced, and 45,000 potholes were fixed in Kirklees. And extremely importantly, millions of pounds of school meals vouchers distributed to 17,000 Kirklees children in most need. Across our services, we are delivering those vital services and value for money. Can we improve? Of course we can. However, with government tax rises coming, no end to the crisis in social care funding, and no adequate response to the cost of living crisis, this is a question that maybe should be better directed to central government.
Supplementary.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. You see, this is the issue, isn't it? Every year, at every budget, well, at every meeting, all of the Labour Party stand up and they complain about the government.
Question. I want you to ask him a question.
I'm asking a question. They proceed to put a council tax by the maximum allowable amount. Every year, we hear the same thing. So my question is again to Councillor Pandor. When are you going to stop blaming others, man up, take some responsibility and deliver for the hard-pressed people of Kirklees? Thank you.
I could answer if you like, Councillor Smith.
I'd rather Councillor Pandor answered. He's the Leader of the Council. Thank you.
Councillor Pandor, have you deferred it to Councillor Davis? Councillor Davis, if you want to answer.
the answer is fairly simple. I've already answered that, so I'm not sure why you asked me the same question.
Well, by my watch, time is up.
We've got time for another question. Come on.
Time is up. Time is up. Your time is up.
Is that Councillor Pandor's time is up?
No, no.
That's the final question. Thank you.
Time is up. Thank you for your patience. I don't know whether that's the right word tonight, but thank you for your patience. Can I wish you all well for the future, as this is my last full council meeting, and good night and have a safe journey. Thank you.